A pleasant afternoon to all our Carmen District Public School teachers, both from elementary and secondary level. Also to our school heads, and of course to our public school district supervisor, I love Carmen, Sir Nolly T. De Felipe. Welcome to our second day afternoon session on district training of teachers on learning management system. Sana po ay nakapag-lunch na tayong lahat and prepare yourselves because this afternoon we're going to learn a lot different discussions regarding the series of unpacking of competencies based on MELT. Maybe we can do some stretching later just to keep our minds active and alert while the session is going on. Before anything else, allow me to read some of your shout outs this afternoon. So I'm going to read it on screen from Antonieta Herona. Hi from Magsaysay Elementary School. Happy lunch, ma'am. And Margie Amarillo, maayong hapon. Waiting for afternoon session from Mabuhay National High School. Next, from Nick Paulo of Sir Nick Rafayes. Good afternoon po. Nakalunch ko ba tanan? Nakalunch ko ba tanan? Yes, sir. Okay, next. Ma'am Emeline Serrano. Good afternoon. Waiting for the next session from San Isidro Elementary School. Next, from Velma Sabanal. Good afternoon, everyone. Still watching from Mangalcal Elementary School. And another one from Ma'am Helen Camacho. Pa-shout out po. Happy watching from Tuganay Elementary School. So I'll be reading later some of the I'll be reading later mama yung ibang yung ibang shout outs. Okay, so let me remind you of our attendance link this afternoon. So we have another attendance link and it is on your screen. So we will open the attendance maybe in the middle of the session or before the open forum. So abang-abang lang po tayo and don't forget to have your attendance this afternoon. So by the way, I remember yung sinabi ni Ma'am Irene kanina, I will be giving you 2 hours to sign in your attendance. So abang-abang lang po. So I guess wala nang ibang reminders. Okay, so now let's continue because it will be a long series of discussion this afternoon. So let's begin. The first speaker is the Curriculum and Learning Management Division, EPS, Dr. Maria Liza I. Berandoy, to talk to us about the unpacking of competencies based on MELC in science learning area.
The code means the MELC is either merged or rephrased. For example, in grade 3, quarter 1, the first competency does not have a code because this competency was rephrased. In quarter 2 of the same grade level, another code was dropped. In the MELCs, we have here the grade level standards for force and energy and earth and space. Learner can describe how objects move and what makes them move. They can also identify sources and describe uses of light, heat, sound, and electricity. Learner can can describe changes in the condition become more nature. Now we'll look into the MELCs for this grade level standard in grade 3. In here, we see that the K-12 learning competency was rephrased. The reason was that rather than asking the learners to just list down, they were asked to describe the various uses of light, sound, heat, and electricity. Two of the LCs has been dropped because of these reasons, written in the last column. Now, let us have a walkthrough of the MELCs. We have here the grade level standards for force and energy, earth and space. In this slide, we see that the first LC was dropped, while two LCs were rephrased. The reasons for these changes are reflected in the last column. We have here the grade level standards for force and energy, earth and space for grade level 5. In this slide, we see that the first LC was dropped. So with the last LC, while the second LC was rephrased. The reason for these changes are written in the last column of this slide. We have here the grade level standards for force and energy, earth and space for grade 6. In this slide, we see that the first LC was rephrased and revised, while the second LC was dropped. These reasons, the LC was expounded to include effects of both rotation and revolution. It was dropped because this partly subsumed in the LC manipulates simple machines to describe their characteristics and uses. For junior high school, grade 7, level standards, force and energy, earth and space. Learner can describe the motion of objects in terms of distance and speed and represent this in tables, graphs, charts, and equations. They can describe how various forms of energy travel through different mediums. Learner describe what makes up the Philippines as a whole and the resources found in the archipelago. They can explain the occurrence of breezes, monsoons, and ITZZ, and how these weather systems affect people. They can explain why seasons change and demonstrate how eclipses occur. The first LC is being rephrased and revised. The second and the third were dropped due to the following reason. The intention of the LC for the students to discover the wave characteristics that define color and intensity and energy. Map reading and landforms, bodies of water, are already discussed in AP. The third LC is dropped since it was subsumed in the discussion on the difference between speed and velocity and distance and displacement. This slide shows the grade level standard competency for grade 8 for force and energy, earth and space. The first LC was rephrased, same as the third LC. The second LC was dropped, and the following reasons were reflected in the last column of this slide. In this slide is the grade level standards for grade 9 for force and energy, earth and space. For science grade 9, the first LC was revised. The second and the third were dropped. The reasons: the LC is expounded to include volcanic eruption, which is one way of classifying volcanoes. The second and the third were dropped due to the topic is already subsumed in the discussion about observable constellations on a specific time of the year. Grade 10 level standards, force and energy, earth and space. At the end of grade 10, learners realize that volcanoes and earthquakes occur in the same places in the world and that these are related to plate boundaries. They can demonstrate ways to ensure safety and reduce damage during earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Learners can explain the factors affecting the balance and stability of an object to help them practice appropriate positions and movements to achieve efficiency and safety, such as in sports and dancing. They can analyze situations in which energy is harnessed for human use, whereby heat is released. In grade 10, the first and the third LCs were dropped, and the second LC was rephrased. The reason for this are all reflected in the last column of this slide. For grade level 3 standards, domain living things and their environment. At the end of grade 3, the learner can describe the functions of the different parts of the body and things that make up their surroundings, such as rocks and soil, plants and animals. In grade 3, the first LC was rephrased. Describe the parts and function of these organs of the human body. To MELCs, describe the functions of the sense organs of the human body. The reason for this, focus should be on the main function of each sense organ. The parts of the sense organs may be tackled in a much higher grade level. Scientific terms of the parts of the sense organs are not appropriate for their age. Whereas the second competency was dropped. The reason is reflected in the last column of this slide. Another LC in Science Grade 3 is dropped. The reason, it will be discussed in Grade 4 EPP. In addition, another LC was dropped for Grade 3 due to all these topics will be covered in Grade 4 EPP. For grade level standards, Grade 4, domain living things and their environment, reflected in this slide. One LC for Grade 4 was dropped, since it will be covered in Grade 4 Health. There are two learning competencies merged and turned into one MELCs. Describe some types of beneficial and harmful interaction among living things, for the reason that the fusion of the LCs could provide students a better understanding of the organisms' interrelationships. In this slide, reflected the Grade 5 level standards for living things and environment. For Grade 5, two of the learning competencies were dropped, since it will be covered in Grade 5 Health. Here is the Grade 6 level standards, living things and their environment. Learners understand how the different organ systems of the human body work together. Learners can classify plants based on reproductive structures and animals based on the presence or lack of backbone. Learners can decide and conduct an investigation on plant propagation. Learners can describe larger ecosystems such as rainforests, coral reefs, and mangrove swamps. For Science Grade 6, One LC is dropped since it was covered in grade 5 competency. For junior high school, grade 7 level standards, living things and their environment. After studying how organ systems work together in plants and animals in the lower grade levels, learners can use a microscope when observing very small organisms and structures. Learners recognize that living things are organized into different levels: cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, and organisms. These organisms comprise populations and communities which interact with non-living things in ecosystems. For grade 7, 2 LCs were dropped since it could be tackled in grade 8 and it was discussed in grade 5. For grade 8 level standards, living things and their environment is reflected in this slide. In grade 8, only one LC was dropped since it was covered in grade 6, third quarter, and grade 7, health, second quarter. In this slide shows the grade 9 level standards for the living things in their environment. For science grade 9, only one LC was dropped since it was covered in a grade 8 competency. This slide shows the grade 10 level standards on living things in their environment. For grade 10, only one LC was dropped since it was covered in grade 8. For the senior high school, course subject description for Earth and Life Science, this learning area is designed to provide a general background for the understanding of Earth science and biology. It presents the history of the Earth through geologic time. It discusses the Earth's structure, composition, and processes. Issues, concerns, and problems pertaining to natural hazards are also included. It highlighted and deals with the basic principles and processes in the study of biology. It covers life, population, and ecosystem levels. To name a few, describe classic experiments that model conditions which may have enabled the first forms to evolve. This LC could be subsumed under Science 11 or 12, Living Things, Quarter 2, Week 1, Competency Number 1. Explain the evolving concept of life based on emerging pieces of evidence. Other LCs dropped were shown in this slide. Here are the examples of the learning competencies dropped in Earth and Life Science. Reflected here are the LCs dropped due to the following reasons: that it was captured in grade 5. These are the LCs dropped for the Earth and Life Science for the following reasons. Reflected in this slide are the LCs dropped for Earth and Life Science due to the reason that it was covered in grade 10. A sample of LC dropped for Earth and Life Science because it was captured in junior high school. Another LC dropped due to the reason that it was captured in grades 5 to 7. For senior high school, General Biology 1 and 2. Biology 1. This subject designed to enhance the understanding of the principles and concepts in the study of biology, particularly life processes at the cellular and molecular levels. It also covers the transformation of energy in organisms. Biology 2. This subject is designed to enhance the understanding of the principles and concepts in the study of biology, particularly heredity and variation, and the diversity of living organisms, their structure, function, and evolution. For Biology 1, 6 LCs were dropped. An example of this: discuss crossing over and recombination in meiosis. MELCs describe the stages of mitosis and meiosis given the 2n equals 6. For the reason, it is subsumed in STEM Bio 1112 with this code. Here are the other LCs dropped for biology. For Biology 2, there are 4 LCs were dropped. Due to it is covered in grade 8, in grade 9, and in grade 10. As well as there are 2 LCs were merged into 1 MELCs. And that maintain steady internal conditions such as temperature regulation, osmotic balance, and glucose levels that possess various structures and processes. For grade 3 level standards, domain matter. They can classify these things as solid, liquid, or gas. Learners can describe changes in the conditions of their surroundings. This would lead learners to become more curious about their surroundings, appreciate nature, and practice health and safety measures. For grade 3, 2 LCs were dropped, 1 retained in MELCs, for the reason that the LC had already been introduced partly in earlier grades, and students to classify objects based on observable characteristics similar to the retained LC. This can form part of an activity to reinforce the LC. In this slide, grade 4 level standard domain matter is reflected. For science grade 4, 2 LCs were dropped for the reason that it is subsumed in grade 6 health. In this slide, shows the grade level standards for grade 5 matter. For science grade 5, only 1 LC was dropped. It is because it is subsumed in the LC, design a product out of local recyclable solid and or liquid materials in making useful products. This slide reflects the grade 6 level standards for matter. For science grade 6, 2 LCs were retained, 2 rephrased to MELCs, and 1 LC dropped. For the reason that revised to require the learner to describe the various separation techniques, which requires a higher level cognitive demand than just recognizing them. The LC was dropped. This can be learned along with the second LC, as learners are directed to describe various separation techniques. Grade 7 level standards matter. At the end of grade 7, learners can distinguish mixtures from substances through semi-guided investigation. They realize the importance of fair testing when conducting investigations. For grade level 7, all LCs were retained. For grade 8 matter, learners can explain the behavior of matter in terms of the particles it is made of. They recognize that ingredients in food and medical products are made up of these particles and absorbed by the body in the form of ion. One LC was deleted, two retained in science grade 8, for the reason that LC can be merged with the succeeding LC, as students are directed to make use of the periodic table to determine the properties of elements. Grade 9 level standards matter. Learners can explain how new materials are formed when atoms are rearranged. They recognize that a wide variety of useful compounds may arise from such rearrangement. Science grade 9. One LC was dropped, two LCs were merged, and all the reasons were reflected in the last column of this slide. For grade level 10, standards matter. Learners can explain the importance of controlling the conditions under which a chemical reaction occurs. They recognize that cells and tissues of the human body are made up of water, a few kinds of ions, and biomolecules. These biomolecules may also be found in the food they eat. For grade 10, one LC was rephrased. Here, in this slide, reflects the melts and the reason of rephrasing. For senior high school general chemistry 1 and 2, composition, structure, and properties of matter, quantitative principles, kinetics, and energetics of transformations of matter, and fundamental concepts of organic chemistry. For general chemistry 1, 5 LCs were dropped and 2 LCs rephrased. The following reasons are all reflected in these slides. Here is the list of the competency dropped and rephrased in General Chemistry 1. In General Chemistry 2, 3 LCs were dropped and 2 LCs rephrased. All the reasons are reflected in this slide. This slide shows the rephrase and drop competencies, and all reasons are reflected in the last column of this slide. Core subject description, physical science. Evolution of our understanding of matter, motion, electricity, magnetism, light, and the universe from ancient times to the present. Applications of physics and chemistry concepts in contexts such as atmospheric phenomena, cosmology, astronomy, vision, medical instrumentation, space technology, drugs, sources of energy, pollution, recycling, fitness and health, and cosmetics. For physical science, 6 learning competencies were dropped for the reason that the basic concepts are already taught in junior high school. This slide shows the dropped competencies, and the reasons are all reflected in the last column of this slide. Senior high school earth science. This learning area is designed to provide a general background for the understanding of the earth on a planetary scale. It presents the history of the earth through geologic time. It discusses the earth's structure and composition, the processes that occur beneath and on the earth's surface, as well as issues, concerns, and problems pertaining to earth's resources. For earth and space, 3 LCs were dropped for the reasons that the same concept is already introduced in Araling Panlipunan, and the topic had been discussed extensively in Science Grade 8 and 10 in the junior high school, respectively. Junior high school DRRR. This course focuses on the application of scientific knowledge and the solution of practical problems in a physical environment. It is designed to bridge the gap between theoretical science and daily living. For the senior high school specialization Earth Science, 3 LCs were dropped. For the reason, the concept is subsumed in the discussion of exposure to hazards and been introduced in Science Grade 6 and subsumed in the prior LC where discusses various volcano-related hazards. For General Physics 1 and 2, Physics 1, Mechanics of Particles, Rigid Bodies and Fluids, Waves, and Heat and Trigonometry, Graphical Analysis, and Basic Calculus. For Physics 2, Electricity and Magnetism, Optics, the Basics of Special Relativity, Atomic and Nuclear Phenomena, using the methods and concepts of algebra, geometry, trigonometry, graphical analysis, and basic calculus. This slide shows the drop competencies for General Physics 1, and all the reasons are reflected in the last column of this slide. For General Physics 2, 6 LCs were dropped for the reason that this topic is subsumed in the prior LC where discusses electrostatic charging. Ohm's law is already introduced in grade 6, and there is no sufficient laboratory equipment provided yet to schools to carry out the activity. Now let us look on how to use the MELCs. But we must remember that MELCs are the same LCs, but only trimmed down. We have 3 things to consider. First, MELCs must be unpacked because they are broad statements. Second, MELCs must be aligned to the content standards and performance standards of the science curriculum. And lastly, time allocation for targeting of the MELCs must be flexible. Here, let us look at the grade 8 first quarter using MELCs. Time allocation, week 2 to 3. For the content standard, the learners demonstrate understanding of work using constant force, power, gravitational potential energy, kinetic energy, and elastic potential energy. We will consider the performance standard. The learner should be able to develop a written plan and implement a Newton's Olympics. And for the MELCs, identify and explain the factors that affect potential and kinetic energy. Here is the grade 8 first quarter sample and packed MELC to learning objectives. A. Define and differentiate potential and kinetic energy. B. Identify the factors that affect potential energy. C. Determine the mathematical variation between potential energy and mass and height from the ground. D. Compare the values of potential energy of varying masses at the same elevation from the ground. Letter E. Identify the factors that affect kinetic energy. F. Determine the mathematical variation between kinetic energy and mass and velocity. G. Create and explain a concept map involving the terms kinetic energy, potential energy, mass, velocity, and elevation. And last, demonstrate and explain the law of conservation of energy using a pendulum. As reflected in this slide, the sample and pack MELCs to learning objectives directly responds to the content standard of the science curriculum and performance standard. As reflected in the yellow box, response to the content standard, demonstrate understanding of potential energy, kinetic energy, and that is explicitly reflected in learning objectives letter A to letter G. And the second one, Allowing students to manipulate a pendulum would help the students prepare for the performance standard plan for Newton's Olympic, and it is reflected in objective letter H.
Chart, I would like to summarize some key points in this orientation of the most important learning competencies. First, the key stage and grade level standards are retained. Second, the most essential learning competencies are not departures of the K-12 basic education science curriculum. Third, it retains the same vision of developing scientific, technological, and environmental literacy. Last, the learning competencies were trimmed down to the most essential competencies. In the end, according to Hans A. Bethe, we need science education to produce scientists, but we need it equally to create literacy in the public. Thank you so much, and I hope we have a clear understanding of the importance of the most essential learning competencies in this new normal. I also hope that we can make the best out of our learners during these trying times. Good luck and God bless us all. Mabuhay tayong lahat.
And that was Dr. Maria Liza I. Berandoy, the CLMDFs, regarding the talk of the most essential learning competency in science. So just to remind everyone to please post your questions regarding the topic in our comment section. We will be reading that one later in our open forum. So to those who are also asking again in the attendance link is now available, but it will be open later in the middle of the session or perhaps before the open forum. So, hintay-hintay lang po tayo and abang-abang din. So now let's move on to our next presentation to give us a discussion of the unpacking of competencies based on MAPEH in Araling Panlipunan Learning Area. Let's welcome on screen Dr. Danilo R. Duhinog.
Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Sa aming direktor, si Dr. Evelyn R. Petalbero, CESO 4, gayon din sa aming Assistant Regional Director, Dr. Maria Ines C. Asuncion, CESO 5. Sa aming Hepe, si Dr. Janet J. Veloso para sa Curriculum and Learning Management Division. Gayon din sa Bureau of Curriculum Development, kay Dr. Rosalie Masilang, salamat sa kopya tungkol sa pinakamahalagang pamantayan sa pagkatuto. Gayon din sa kanyang mga specialist. Higit sa lahat, magandang araw sa mga kasamahan ko sa Araling Panlipunan. Gayon din sa ating mga guro sa Rehiyon Ponce. Ang tatalakayin natin sa araw na ito ay kung paano binuo ang pinakamahalagang pamantayan sa pagkatuto sa Araling Panlipunan, o mas kilala sa acronym na MELC o MEL. Tingnan natin ang naging kasaysayan sa pagkabuo ng MEL sa Araling Panlipunan. Una, nagkaroon ng curriculum review. Ang ating mga dalubhasa ay tiningnang maigi ang curriculum mula sa elementarya hanggang sa sekundarya. Pinag-aralan ang curriculum guide, gayon din ang curriculum standard, kung saan napapaloob ang learning competencies. Mula sa learning competencies, nabuo ang essential learning competencies. At mula naman sa essential learning competencies, nabuo ang most essential learning competencies. Ano-ano nga ba ang mga basihan sa pagkabuo ng most essential learning competencies? Una, kinakailangan na ang learning competency na ito ay panghabang buhay. Kinakailangan din na ito ay buo, malinaw, at may malawak na kaalaman. Higit sa lahat, ito ay naaayon sa pamantayang pangnilalaman at pamantayan sa pagganap. Bakit nabuo ang MELC o yung tinatawag nating pinakamahalagang pamantayan sa pagkatuto? Una, upang matulungan ang mga guro na matukoy ang mahahalagang pamantayang pampagkatuto upang sa gayon ay bigyan ito ng prioridad. Pangalawa, maging batayan sa kanilang mga desisyong instruksyonal at hindi upang palitan ang kasalukuyang curriculum guide. Tingnan natin ang kabuang bilang ng pamantayang pampagkatuto sa Araling Panlipunan mula grado 1 hanggang 10. Sa kasalukuyan, mayroon tayong tinatawag na 253 na most essential learning competencies. Ang most essential learning competencies ay mula sa 336 na tinatawag nating essential learning competencies. Ito naman ay galing sa 507 na mga learning competencies mula sa ginagamit natin na curriculum guide. Mula sa 507 patungong essential learning competencies na 336, mayroong 171 na learning competencies na nawala o di kaya'y isinama sa ibang learning competencies o binago. Mula naman sa 336, nagkaroon na lamang tayo ngayon ng 253. Nasaan ang 83 na essential learning competencies? Ito ay posibleng inalis din o di kaya isinama sa kapwa essential learning competencies. Tingnan naman natin ang isa pang datos kung saan ipinakita ang pagbabago ng mga learning competencies patungong most essential learning competencies sa bawat taon. Halimbawa, sa unang taon o sa unang grado, noon mayroong 63 na mga learning competencies mula sa curriculum guide. Ngunit binawasan ito o di kaya tinanggal o pinag-isa para mabuo ang tinatawag nating essential learning competencies. Mula sa 63, naging 31 na lamang ito. Pero naging 29 pa nang mabuo natin ang most essential learning competencies. Sa makatuwid, may dalawang essential learning competencies na pinag-isa at tinanggal. Ito naman ay isa ring datos na nagpapakita sa porsyento ng mga learning competencies at essential learning competencies na nabago, naisama at natanggal. Halimbawa, sa baitang 1, ang current learning competencies natin ay 63 at ang essential learning competencies natin ay 31. Sa kasalukuyan, mayroon tayong 29 pero tinatawag natin itong most essential learning competencies. Sa makatuwid, mula sa learning competencies patungong essential learning competencies, mayroon tayong 50.79% na mga learning competencies na nawala o napasama. Gayon din sa essential learning competencies patungong most essential learning competencies na kung saan mayroon tayong 3.18% na mga competencies na nawala o napasama. Ano-ano nga ba ang mga pananda upang pagsahin natin, tanggalin, o di kaya maiba ang anyo ng ating mga learning competencies? Pag sinasabi nating retained, itinuturing na essential ang learning competency. Kaya hindi nirebisa o nananatili sa dating anyo o artikulasyon tulad ng makikita natin sa K-12 curriculum guide. Pag sinasabi naman nating merge, ang mga learning competencies na ito ay magkakaugnay, magkakahilintulad o bahagi ng isang paksa na pinag-isa na lamang sa pamamagitan ng pagbuo ng panibagong learning competency. Kung i-rephrase naman natin, ito ay sumailalim sa pagpapalit ng learning verb o di kaya ng salita o grupo ng mga salita upang gawing tiyak, malinaw at komprehensibo ang naturang competency. Kapag ito ay subsume, magkakaugnay, magkakahalintulad o bahagi ng isang paksa na ipinagpapalagay na nakapaluloob sa nag-iisang independent na competency. Kung ito naman ay tinanggal, ang ibig sabihin nito, hindi isinama sa ibang uri ng competency dahil ito ay hindi esensyal at ang pagtatanggal dito ay halos walang epekto sa pagkakamit ng pamantayang pangnilalaman at pagganap. Upang mas lalo nating maintindihan kung bakit pinag-isa ang magkakaparihong mga learning competencies at mabuo ang most essential learning competencies, gayon din ang ugnayan ng most essential learning competencies sa tinatawag nating pamantayan sa pagkatuto, pamantayan sa nilalaman o di kaya sa pagganap. Tingnan natin ang ilan sa mga halimbawa mula sa elementarya. Makikita natin sa unang markahan para sa grado 1. Ang content standard o ang pamantayang pangnilalaman ay naipamamalas ang pag-unawa sa kahalagaan ng pagkikilala o pagkilala sa sarili bilang Pilipino gamit ang konsepto ng pagpapatuloy at pagbabago. Sa makatuwid, sa ilalim ng pamantayang pangnilalaman nito, ang mga mag-aaral ay kinakailangang mapahalagan niya ang kanyang sarili pagkatapos ng unang markahan. Sa ilalim naman ng pamantayan sa pagganap, ang mag-aaral ay may buong pagmamalaking nakapagsasalaysay ng kwento tungkol sa sariling katangian at pagkakakilanlan bilang Pilipino sa malikhaing pamamaraan. Sa pamantayan sa pagganap, kinakailangan na ang mga mag-aaral ay maibahagi nila sa iba ang kanilang katangian bilang mga Pilipino sa iba't ibang pamaraan. Mula sa content standard at performance standard, ang learning competency 7 ay isinama na sa learning competency 6. Bakit? Dahil halos magkakapareho lamang ito. Ang learning competency 7 at learning competency 6 ay tumutukoy sa pagkatao ng isang mag-aaral na kung saan siyang binibigyang diin natin sa pamantayang pangnilalaman at pamantayan sa pagganap. Para sa ikalawang taon, sa ikalawang markahan, alam natin na ang ating tinatawag na pamantayang pangnilalaman ay naipamamalas ang pag-unawa sa kwento ng pinagmulan ng sariling komunidad batay sa konsepto ng pagbabago at pagpapatuloy at pagpapahalaga sa kulturang nabuo ng komunidad. Ang tinatawag naman nating pamantayan sa pagganap ay nauunawaan ang pinagmulan at kasaysayan ng komunidad. Gayon din, nabibigyang halaga ang mga bagay na nagbago at nananatili sa pamumuhay sa komunidad. Sa ilalim nito, kinakailangang mapahalagahan ng mga mag-aaral ang mga bagay sa kanilang komunidad. Kung kaya't, pinag-isa ang tatlong learning competencies. Ano-ano ang mga ito? Ang learning competency 4 at learning competency 3 ay pinag-isa sa learning competency 2. Bakit? Dahil halos magkakapareho itong tumutukoy sa pinagmulan ng komunidad. Dumako naman tayo sa ikatlong grado. Halimbawa, sa ikatlong markahan. Ang ating pamantayang pangnilalaman ay naipamamalas ang pag-unawa at pagpapahalaga sa pagkakakilanlang kultural ng kinabibilangang rehiyon. Ang ating pamantayan sa pagganap ay nakapagpapahayag ng may pagmamalaki at pagkikilala sa nabubuong kultura ng mga lalawigan sa kinabibilangang rehiyon. Sa makatuwid, sa ilalim nito, ang mga mag-aaral sa ikatlong grado ay dapat maunawaan nila at maipakita sa iba ang mga nakagisnang kultura nila, mga kultura na nakuha at namana nila mula sa kanilang rehiyon, ang rehiyon ng Davao. Dahil dito, ang 5 competencies ay naging isa. Itong nailalarawan ang pagkakakilanlang kultura ng sariling lalawigan, na isa-isa ang mga pangkat ng mga tao sa sariling lalawigan at rehiyon, na kapagbibigay ng mga halimbawang salita mula sa mga wika at dialekto sa sariling lalawigan at rehiyon, gayon din ang nailalarawan ang mga kaugalian, paniniwala at tradisyon ng sariling lalawigan at ng rehiyon ay may pari-parihong tinutumbok. Kung kaya't, maaari na itong gawing isahan at ito ay ang nailalarawan ang pagkakakilanlang kultural ng kinabibilangang rehiyon. Dumako naman tayo sa ika-4 na grado. Halimbawa, sa unang markahan, alam natin na ang pamantayang pangnilalaman ay naipamamalas ng ating mga mag-aaral ang konsepto ng bansa. Gayon din ang pag-unawa sa pagkakakilanlan ng mga bansa ayon sa mga katangiang geographical gamit ang mapa. Ang pamantayan sa pagganap naman ay naipaliliwanag ng mga mag-aaral na ang Pilipinas ay isang bansa. Gayon din ang kasanayan sa paggamit ng mapa sa pagtukoy ng iba't ibang lalawigan at rehiyon. Dahil dito, kinakailangang manatili ang ating unang learning competency na mula pa sa curriculum guide. Dahil natumbok na niya ang ating pamantayang pangnilalaman, gayon din ang ating pamantayan sa pagganap. At ang competency na natutukoy sa MAPA ang kinalalagyan ng bansa sa rehiyong Asya at gayon din sa mundo ay hindi na kinakailangan dahil maaaring makamit na ang kasanayang gusto nating makamtan ng ating mga mag-aaral sa unang competency. Dumako naman tayo sa grade 5. Halimbawa, sa unang markahan, ang pamantayang panglalaman, yun din ang pamantayan sa pagganap, ay maaari nang matumbok ng ating learning competency na natatalakay ang paglaganap ng relihiyong Islam sa ibang bahagi ng bansa. Dapat tandaan natin na ang learning competency na nailalarawan ang lokasyon ng Pilipinas sa MAPA ay hindi na masyadong mahalaga dahil maaaring makamtan pa rin natin ang pamantayang panglalaman, gayon din ang pamantayan sa pagganap sa iba pang mga dating competency. Sa grade o sa ating mga mag-aaral, ang pag-unawa at kaalaman sa Pilipinas. Sa ilalim ng pamantayan sa pagganap, kinakailangan lamang na mapapahalagan ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kontribusyon ng ating bansa sa daigdig o di kaya sa ating mundo. Kung kaya't natumbok na ng learning competency number 4 at ito ay natatalakay ang partisipasyon ng mga kababaihan sa Rebolusyong Pilipino. Kaya maaari nang tanggalin ang dati nating learning competency na nasa bilang una. Dumako naman tayo sa sekundarya. Sa sekundarya, mayroon itong 81 na mga learning competency mula sa curriculum guide. Para sa grade 8, mayroon itong 43 na mga learning competency. Sa grade 9, mayroon itong 82 na mga learning competencies. Gayon din sa grade 10 na umabot sa 42. Ngunit dahil sa ating hinaharap ngayon sa COVID-19, nabawasan o di kaya pinagsanid ang halos magkakaparihong learning competency. Kung kaya't ang naging resulta ay umabot lamang sa 43 mula 81. Sa grade 8, mayroon na lamang tayong 31 mula 43. Sa grade 9, mayroon na lamang tayong 62 mula 82 at 31 mula 42. Ngunit, nagkaroon muli ng panibagong learning competency na tinatawag nating most essential learning competency. Kung kaya't nabawasan muli ang ating mga essential learning competency. Sa kasalukuyan, ang baitang 7 ay mayroon na lamang 30 learning competencies na tinatawag natin ngayong most essential learning competencies. Sa grade 8, mayroon na lamang tayong 24 na learning competencies na tinatawag nating most essential learning competencies. Gayon din sa grade 9 na umabot na lamang sa 26 at grade 10 na umabot na lamang sa 17. Tingnan natin ang ilan sa mga halimbawa ng mga learning competencies na pinagsanib, pinag-isa, tinanggal, or nananatili ayon sa mga nabanggit kong batayan. Sa grade 7, ang pamantayang pangnilalaman ay naipamamalas ng mag-aaral ang pag-unawa sa ugnayan ng kapaligiran, sinaunang kabias ng Asyano. Sa makatuwid, sa ilalim ng grade 7, dapat mabuo lamang sa isipan ng ating mga mag-aaral na may kaugnayan ang tao at ang kanilang paligid sa paghubog ng sinaunang kabias ng Asyano. Sa ilalim ng pamantayan sa pagganap, kinakailangan na napag-uugnay-ugnay ng ating mga mag-aaral ang ginampanan ng kapaligiran at tao sa paghubog ng sinaunang kabias ng Asyano. Dahil dito, tinanggal ang learning competency na nakakagawa ng pangkalatang profile ng geografiya ng Asya. Bakit? Dahil maaari na itong isama sa unang competency natin na naipapaliwanag ang konsepto ng Asya tungkol sa paghahating geograpiko. Ito ay tumutukoy sa ating kapaligiran. Gayon din ang Learning Competency 8 na kung saan naipapahayag ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kahalagahan ng pangangalaga sa timbang na kalagayang ekologiko ng rehiyon. Sa learning competency na ito, may pakikialam na ang tao at isa ito sa mga humuhubog sa pagkakaroon ng kabiasnan o pagbabago. Gayon din sa grade 8 na kung saan ilan sa mga dating learning competencies ay pinag-isa. May nananatili at mayroon namang binago. Sa grade 9 ay gayon din. Mula sa content standard at performance standard, may mga pinag-isang learning competency. Kagaya ng nakita natin sa una, pangalawa, pangatlo, at pang-apat na bilang. Dahil halos magkakapareho lamang ito, kaya maaring mabuo ang nag-iisang learning competency. Sa grade 10, dapat lamang bibigyang diin ng ating mga mag-aaral na kinakailangan malaman nila ang kahalagahan at ang kanilang pakikilahok sa mga gawaing pansibiko tungo sa pagkakaroon ng pamayanan at bansang maunlad, mapayapa at may pagkakaisa. Dahil dito, ilan sa mga competencies natin ay pinag-isa para naman mapaikli ang bilang ng mga tatahaking competency. Mula sa sekundarya, dumako naman tayo sa senior high school, sa core specialized subject. For grade 11, ang content standard ay kinakailangang ma-demonstrate ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kanilang understanding sa social differences, social change, at political identity. Ganon din ang significance ng culture, society, and politics. At ang rationale for studying anthropology, political science, and sociology. Para matumbok natin ito, kinakailangang i-rephrase na lamang ang ating pangalawang learning competency. At ang unang learning competencies ay pwedeng hindi na ito gagamitin ng ating mga guro. Dahil sa pangalawang learning competency na kung saan binago lamang natin ang anyo para maging most essential learning competency, ay matutulungan na ang sumunod na mga learning competencies para maisakatuparan ang minimithi nating layunin na mabuo sa isipan ng ating mga mag-aaral. Sa grade 12 naman, binibigyang diin lamang dito ang konteksto at ang iba't ibang relihiyon na kung saan sa ilalim ng performance standard dapat ang ating mga mag-aaral ay maipakita lamang nila na naimpluwensyahan ng relihiyon ang kanilang mga gawi o di kaya ang kanilang mga kultura. Kung kaya't maaari na itong makamtan sa pamamagitan ng pagsasanib sa ilan sa mga learning competency na be aware that Islam upholds 5 pillars, know about the life of Prophet Muhammad, and accept Islam practices with an eye of respect. Sa pamamagitan ng pagbabagong anyo ng ikalawang competency, matutulungan na ang ikatlong competency para mabuo ang konteksto ng iba't ibang relihiyon. Sa makatwid, hindi na kinakailangan pang manatili ang unang learning competency. Paano gagamitin ang most essential learning competencies sa pagtuturo? Alam ko na alam ng ating mga guro na may mga most essential learning competency na hindi maaaring ituro sa ating mga mag-aaral sa loob ng 2 araw. Ito ang dahilan kung bakit gumagawa ang ating mga guro ng tinatawag nating learning objectives. O kinakailangang i-unpack ng ating mga guro ang most essential learning competency para mahimay-himay nila ang most essential learning competency. Sa pagkakaroon ng iba't ibang layunin sa kanilang pagtuturo mula sa most essential learning competencies, matuturuan natin ang ating mga guro na mapaganda nila ang kanilang pagtuturo at madaling makuha ang ninanais nilang kasanayang mabuo sa ating mga mag-aaral. Isa rin itong halimbawa na kung saan ang most essential learning competency ay hinimay-himay ng mga dalubhasa. At ito ang tinatawag nating learning objectives. Gayun din sa learning competency na nasasabi ang batayang impormasyon tungkol sa sarili, pangalan, magulang, karawan, edad, tirahan, paralan, at iba pang pagkakakilanlan at mga katangian bilang mga Pilipino. Ang learning competency na ito ay malawak at hindi maaring ituro sa ating mga mag-aaral sa loob ng 1 araw. Kung kaya't, para mas lalong maintindihan ng ating mga mag-aaral o makikita ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kahalagahan ng competency na ito, kinakailangan nating i-unpack o magkakaroon tayo ng mga learning objectives. Ang sumunod ay isang halimbawa ng DLL. Ipinakita dito kung paano bumuo ang isang guro ng objective o paano na-unpack ng isang guro ang most essential learning competency. Muli, ginawa ng guro ang pagkakaroon ng objective o layunin dahil ang most essential learning competency ay hindi maisasagawa sa loob lamang ng 1 araw o posibleng hindi makikita ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kahalagahan ng learning competency na ito. Kinakailangang himay-himayin kapag ang most essential learning competency ay masyadong malawak. Muli, para sa ating mga guro, Dapat lang natandaan natin na ang ating ginagawa ay para sa ating mga mag-aaral. Nabuo ang pinakamahalagang pamantayan sa pagkatuto para sa Araling Panlipunan para mapanatili nating maibigay o magkakaroon ng sapat na kasanayan ang ating mga mag-aaral kahit na hinaharap natin ang COVID-19 sa kasalukuyan. Mga guro, tulungan ninyo ako para maging maganda at mapapahalagahan ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kanilang kasaysayan o ang kanilang lipunan. Tandaan, mahalaga ang gampanin ng Araling Panlipunan sa paglikha ng lipunang aral na siyang pinapangarap nating maging lipunang iran sa bansang Pilipinas. Mahal natin ang Pilipinas, mahal natin ang Pilipino, magtulungan tayo. Maraming salamat.
Well, and that's our CLMDS, Dr. Danilo R. Duhino, regarding the discussion of the most essential learning competencies in Araling Panlipunan learning area. So let's proceed to the next discussion regarding the unpacking of competencies based on the most essential learning competencies in ESP and SPFL learning area.
Okay, so we have just heard the discussion of Dr. Duhino on the MELS in Aral Pan. My task is to present to you the MELS in Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao. And based on the session guide which was provided to us, this is the flow of this presentation. The first part is the presentation of the conceptual framework of the Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao, to be followed by the walkthrough of ESP MELS. Within this walkthrough of the ESP MELS ay yung mga paraan ng pagpili ng MELS, paano gamitin ang MELS, pagtaluntun sa MELS sa bawat key stage, and then to be followed by the third part, which is the unpacking of competencies, and the fourth part are the parts of a lesson exemplar. Okay, but before I'll proceed, let me first acknowledge the support of our Regional Director, Dr. Evelyn R. Calvero, our Assistant Regional Director, Dr. Maria Ines Asuncion, and then our CLMD Chief, Dr. Janet Veloso, and to all men and women in DepEd Regional Office 11 who made this meaningful session possible. Good day to all of you. So here are the objectives of this 40-minute presentation. So pagkatapos ng sesyon, inaasahang ang mga kalahok ay nakapagpaliwanag ng mga batayang conceptual ng ESP, tamang paggamit ng mga MELS sa pagtuturo, pagkatuto, or the teaching learning, tungo sa mabisang pagpapadaloy ng mga aralin sa ESP sa batayang edukasyon. Mga suggested steps in unpacking the learning competencies and mga bahagi ng lesson exemplar, and maybe the most important objective is for the participants na maibahagi ang mga natutunan sa mga kaguruan ng ESP sa kanilang mga STOs. Okay. Ano po ba yung mga inaasahang outcome? If we have those objectives, we will be expecting some meaningful outcomes after this. These are its expected outcome. The first one is the immediate outcome, which is yung mga kalahok na nakapagpapaliwanag ng malinaw ng paggamit ng mga MELS sa mga pagsasanay at LAC or the Learning Action Cell sessions tungo sa mabisang pagpapadaloy ng mga aralin sa ESP. The next outcome is the enabling outcome. Ito yung mga gurong tagapagpadaloy sa mga na may commitment sa pag-akukla ng pagtuturo ng ESP sa mga MELS ayon sa konteksto at yugto ng papaunlad, ng pag-unlad rather ng mga mag-aaral. And then the final outcome, mga mag-aaral na nagpapamalas ng mga kaalaman, pag-unawa, kasanayan at pagpapahalaga mula sa mga MELP at mga tunguhin ng ESP asignatura. We know that everything that we are doing in DepEd will surely be redounding or with that objective of having it redound to the benefit of all our learners. So yun siya. Okay. And then, as mentioned earlier, this is the flow of this presentation. The first is the conceptual framework, then walkthrough, and then the unpacking of competencies and the parts of the exemplar. And now, in the past presentation, we've known and we've seen that that are happening in this department right now is because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is anchored on the premise that we will be exhausting our human capital if we will stop educating our people, if we are going to stop our education system, all our human resource, our human capital, the human capital of this country will be exhausted. So what could be the role of this pandemic? There had been scenarios that we've heard, even to the extent of putting aside the ESP and just focus on the other core subjects. Such could not be done because we also need to educate the hearts of our learners. We need to educate them. Ang edukasyon sa isip na hindi nagbibigay edukasyon sa puso ay hindi tunay na edukasyon. I hope you will agree with me on that. Okay? And then, ang ESP bilang asignatura is teaching our human capital on how to become human. Nagbibigay ito ng edukasyon sa pagiging ganap na tao. Ito ay tumutulong sa paglikha ng pagkasino ng tao tungo sa pagbuo ng sarili. Sa pagtatalaga lamang ng sarili, here comes the target outcome. learners who are the future leaders of this country in the future. All right. So, lahat ng mga yun ay nakapaloob sa apat na tema. From kinder to grades 1 to 10. So, there are 4 themes. The first one is about pansarili, sarili. Pananagutan pansarili for theme 1. Theme 2 is for pakikipagkapwa at katatagan ng pamilya. Theme 3 is paggawa tungo sa pambansang pag-unlad at pakikibahagi sa pandaigdigang pagkakaisa. And theme 4 is pagkamakadiyos at preferensya sa kabutihan. From kinder to grades 1 to 6, yung theme 1 is for quarter 1. Yung theme 2 is for quarter 2. Yung theme 3 is for quarter 3. And yung theme 4 is for quarter 4. And these are all presented in spiral progression. Okay. The same is true with grade 7, 8, 9, and 10. Theme 1 is grade 7. Theme 2 is for grade 8. And theme 3 is for grade 9. And theme 4 is for grade 10. All right. So, let's go to this table here. Talahanayan ng mga konsepto sa edukasyon sa pagpapakatao. As mentioned earlier, yung unang markahan entails about pansarili at sa pamilya. Yung ikalawang markahan, yung theme is about pakikipagkapwa, pagmamalasakit sa kapwa. And then yung ikatlong markahan is para sa kabutihan ng lahat. And then ikaapat na markahan or pangmakabansa, yung ikatlong markahan. And then ikaapat na markahan, paggawa ng mabuti ay kinalulugdan ng Diyos. So for the first theme, that is for the family and self, and then for kapwa-tao yung second, and then ikatlo yung para sa bansa, and then para sa Diyos. All of these themes are being included in all the learning competencies in the first, second, and third quarters for each grade level rather. Okay, so let us look at this. Ito ang tema sa unang markahan. Sa baitang 7, ako bilang nagdadalaga. This is still about self. Baitang 8, pakikipagkapwa sa katatagan ng pamilya. Still with the family and self. And then for ikalawang markahan, pakikipagkapwa-tao, tungkulin sa lipunan, makataong kilos. And then for third quarter, ang pagpapahalaga at birtud. Pagpapahalaga at birtud sa pakikipagkapwa, pagpapahalaga at birtud sa paggawa, pangunahing birtud, and so on and so forth. And then about Diyos ang sa ikaapat na markahan. Alright. Now let's go to the paraan ng, we are now with walkthrough of MELCs in ESP. As mentioned earlier, this is composed of the paraan ng pagpili ng MELCs, and then paano gamitin ang MELCs at ang pag-aluntun sa MELCs sa bawat key stage. Now, let's proceed. Ano nga ba ang konteksto ng mga MELCs for the most essential learning competencies? Ano ang context? Why is there a need for us to have this MELC? Ito ay ginagawa upang matugunan ang mga pangangailangan sa pagtuturo, pagkatuto, or the teaching learning sa panahon ng krisis o emergency dulot ng mga kalamidad or pandemya. And this is what is happening right now. Okay? So ano ang mga MELCs? Ano yun? Mga lubhang mahalagang kaalaman, pag-unawa, kasanayan, at pagpapahalaga na dapat matutuhan ng mga mag-aaral sa panahon ng krisis, kalamidad, or pandemya upang maging produktibo at mapanagutang mamamayan. This is declared under the Declaration of Policy or the Section 2 of Republic Act 10533. Ano ang layunin ng mga MELCs? Ang layunin ng mga MELCs ay ituon ang pag-aaral ng ESP sa mga lubhang mahalagang kaalaman, pag-unawa, kasanayan, at pagpapahalaga ayon sa sitwasyon at yugto ng pag-unlad ng mga mag-aaral sa panahon ng krisis, kalamidad, or pandemya. Paano pinipili at paano nga ba pinipili ang mga MELCs sa ESP? For example, there have been presentations from those or by those speakers ahead of me about the pagpili ng mga MELCs. How were they selected? In the case of the ESP team, ginagawa nila ay yung pag-uuri kung essential or desirable ba ang bawat learning competencies. There was deliberation among them, and there was that declaration or pagpapasya, decision making, as to whether or not the identified MELP is pasok sa criteria. Okay, let us remember yung baitang or grades 1 to 6, binabawasan ang mga bilang ng learning competencies. And then yung grades 7 to 10, binabawasan ang mga paksa. Okay? Alright. So, ang learning competencies ay essential. Paano nga ba siya? Bakit siya tinatawag na essential? Kung pumapasok siya or ina-address niya ang itong mga kriteryang ito. Okay. Standards, this is what we call as ST clips. Okay. Standards for ST, and then letter C is concepts, and then life for L, and then priority for P, and school for S. Pag ang learning competency ay sumasalamin or sinasalamin ang mga pambansang pamantayan sa pagkatuto that addresses the standards. Pag ito ay may kaugnayan sa mga mahalagang konsepto sa ibang asignatura, it addresses the concepts. Pag ito ay nailalapat sa buhay, that addresses life. Pag ito ay lubhang mahalagang pag-aralan nila, ito kung ikukumpara sa ibang LC or lubhang mahalagang pag-aralan dapat nila kung ikumpara sa ibang LC, lalo na kung titigil sila sa pag-aaral sa susunod na taon, dapat itong i-prioritize. So, sa paaralan lamang ito matutuhan kung hindi nila ito matutuhan sa mga magulang at komunidad. So, these are the criteria which will determine or which will help us decide whether or not a particular learning competency is really essential or part of the most essential competencies. And that was what they did in the central office. Kapag kulang o walang katangian ng mga ELC, hindi sila kasali. Alright. So, paunawa lang po, binawasan lamang ang bilang ng mga learning competencies sa baitang 1 to 6 or sa grades 1 to 6 at ang bilang ng mga paksa sa junior high school. Ang mensahe or esensya ng paksa o learning competency. Ano po ba yung mga batayan gamit ng mga taga-central office in charge in or the selecting of the most essential learning competencies? According to them, ito yung mga criteria sa pagpili ng mga MELs, yung sinasabi kanina, yung ST clips. And then, yung developmental tasks ni Robert Havighurst. Then yung pamantayan sa pagkatuto, yung provided learning standards in the CG which was issued in May 2016. And then yung struktura ng curriculum. Okay? So, ano yung mga criteria sa pagpili ng mga MELs? Ito yung REL, readiness. Readiness for the next level of learning. May taglay na prerequisite sa susunod na antas ng pagkatuto. And then yung endurance, yung pangmatagalan. Ibig sabihin, or it means to say that if the learning competency will go beyond or will stay in the heart and mind of the student, will go beyond even after the test or even after a particular activity which this learning competency is being achieved, tumatagal sa puso at isipan ng bata. That will make sure, that will help us determine na itong learning competency na ito is or will address the endurance test. Okay? The L there is the leverage. May maximum na pakinabang. May maximum na pakinabang sa pagkatao ng bata. Kung ang LC or learning competency na ito ay may maximum na pakinabang sa pagkatao ng isang tao, dapat lang siyang isali as part of the most essential learning competency. Okay. Ano-ano yung mga pamantayan sa pagkatuto or learning standard gabay sa pang-curriculum? Pangkalahatang pamantayan or the learning standards, pamantayang pangnilalaman or the content standards, and the pamantayan sa pagganap, yung performance standards. All of these are provided in the curriculum guide issued on May 2016. We have to realize that bago natin maabot itong learning competencies, dapat kailangan alam natin yung learning standards, alam natin yung content standards, and alam natin yung essential understanding. Dapat yung teacher alam niya so that she will be able to fully understand as to how to arrange the curriculum or how to arrange the activities which she wants for her students rather to pass through or to go through in order for them to be guided as to what learning competency shall they achieve in that particular activities. Okay? So, sa Baitans 1 to 6, ito yung estruktura ng curriculum. In grades or levels 1 to 6, grades 1 to 6, ang mga learning competencies na may nakapaloob na batayang konsepto kahit hindi direktang binanggit ito. Just like here, for example, in grade 1, in the first quarter of grade 1, may learning competency na nasasabi na nakatutulong sa paglinang ng sariling kakayahan ang wastong pangangalaga sa sarili. In grade 3, there is this learning competency sa ikatlong markahan na kapagpapahayag na isang tanda ng mabuting pag-uugali ng Pilipino ang pagsunod sa alituntunin ng pamayanan. Okay? Sa junior high school naman, ang 4 na uri ng mga kasanayan sa pampagkatuto o learning competency sa bawat paksa batay sa 6 na kasanayan sa cognitive process dimensions. This is under DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015. Policy guidelines, or this is entitled Policy Guidelines on Classroom Assessment for the K-12 Basic Education Program. So, andoon yung 6 cognitive process dimensions. Mga uri ng kasanayang nililinang sa bawat isa sa 4 na learning competencies at ang mga tanong na sinasagot ng bawat learning competency. So, for grade 7 to 10, ito yung mga learning competencies. Learning competency number 1, LC2, LC3, and LC4. Anong nandoon sa LC1? Knowledge. Ano yung guide question? Anong kaalaman ang kailangan upang maipamalas ang mag-aaral ang pag-unawa? For LC2, it entails comprehension, analysis, and evaluation. So ano yung guide question? Anong kasanayan ang dapat maipamalas tungo sa pag-unawa? For LC3, comprehension and synthesis, ito yung guide question. Ano ang pinakamahalagang mensahe na dapat maunawaan ng mag-aaral? At for LC4, application. Ano ang dapat maipamalas ng mag-aaral bilang patunay ng pag-unawa? So, ito na yung ipamamalas na ng bata kung ano ba yung dapat na ebidensya to prove that he really understood something from the lesson. Okay. Mga katangian ng batayang konsepto o essential understanding na nasa ikatlong LC. Now, let's go back to the ikatlong LC, comprehension and synthesis. Alright? So, it must have endurance or pangmatagalan o panghabang buhay. Kailangan ng mag-aaral ang LC na ito kahit tapos na siya sa pag-aaral. Yun yung sinasabi ko kanina, that if the learning competency will remain in the heart and in the mind of the student even beyond a particular level or a particular grade level, a particular activity or particular quiz or test, dapat yan siya ay i-declare na it passed through the endurance test. Mailalapat niya ito sa mga konkretong sitwasyon ng buhay at sa anumang profesyon o curriculum exit na pipiliin niya. Hindi ito maaring maanod sa pagbabago ng panahon. The second one is a discipline-based, batay sa mga disiplina ng ESP. Nakaangkla ang batayang konsepto sa 2 disiplina ng ESP. Ano nga ba yung 2 disiplina ng ESP? Etika at career guidance. Ang expert system of knowledge na ipinahayag nito ay nangangailangan ng matibay na batayan mula sa malalim na pag-aaral o pagsasaliksik. And the third is the needs and coverage. May napakaloob na mga konsepto. Ang malalaking mensahe ng batayang konsepto or the key concept ay maaari pang mahimay sa maliliit na konsepto. And this is where the unpacking will come in. Okay? We just need to understand ano yung key concept, ano yung dapat pang matutunan beyond what we see in the facade of a particular learning competency. Meron yan sa ilalim, meron yan. So, good teachers really do unpack because only teachers who understand well the learning competency, will be able to fully understand kung ano yung mahimay-himay niya or maliliit na konsepto na dapat maintindihan ng mga estudyante. And then the next one is the potentially engaging. Lubhang mahalaga ang mensahe ng batayang konsepto sa buhay ng mag-aaral. Kaya napupukaw nito ang kanyang interes, atensyon, at pakikilahok. Okay. Now let's go to the paano gamitin ang MELS. Okay. Paano nga ba gamitin ang MELS ng ESP? Number 1, pag-aralan ang bawat most essential learning competency ayon sa pamantayang pangnilalaman or the content standards at ayon sa pamantayan sa pagganap or the performance standards ng bawat quarter o paksa. Number 2, isaalang-alang sa bawat MELC ang pinakamahalagang mensahe na dapat tandaan ng mag-aaral. Hindi lamang ang gawain o pagpapahalagang nakasaad dito. Ito ang batayang konsepto. So, meron tayong guide questions dito. Ano ang pinakamahalagang mensahe na dapat maunawaan ng mag-aaral? Ano ang kahalagahan ng paggawa ng gawain o pagsasabuhay sa pagpapahalagang nakapaloob sa learning competency? So we should be guided by these questions so that we will be able to understand kung anong mensahe ang nandoon sa learning competency na yon. Ano yung batayang konsepto, the key concept. Okay? So for grades 1 to 6, mahalaga ang paghihinuha o pagtukoy mismo ng mga guro ng batayang konsepto na ipinahihiwatig ng isang LC or learning competencies or group of competencies kahit hindi direktang binanggit ito. Just like for example, in level 1 or grade 1, unang markahan, the learning competency is this one. Nasasabi na nakatutulong sa paglinang ng sariling kakayahan ang wastong pangangalaga sa sarili. The key concept for that, or of that particular learning competency is this one. Nakatutulong sa paglinang ng sariling kakayahan ang wastong pangangalaga sa sarili. Diba? So for grade 3, for example, in the third quarter, nakapagpapahayag na isang tanda ng mabuting pag-uugali ng Pilipino ang pagsunod sa tuntunin ng pamayanan. That's a learning competency. So what is the concept of this particular learning competency? Isang tanda ng mabuting pag-uugali ng Pilipino ang pagsunod sa tuntunin ng pamayanan. Okay. For grades 7 to 10, makikita ang batayang konsepto sa ikatlong learning competency sa bawat paksa. Mahalagang gabayan ng guro ang mga mag-aaral na mahinuha ang basic, ang key concept, batayang konsepto, mula sa babasahin tungkol sa paksa. So for example, sa baitang at markahan, grade 7, ikalawang markahan, second quarter, na ipaliliwanag na ang isip at kilos loob ng ang nagpapabukod tangi sa tao, kaya ang kanyang mga pagpapasya ay dapat patungo sa katotohanan at kabutihan. Ang batayang konsepto or the key concept of this particular learning competency is this. Ang isip at kilos or ang isip at kilos loob ang nagpapabukod tangi sa tao, kaya ang kanyang mga pagpapasya ay dapat patungo sa katotohanan at kabutihan. Okay. Here comes the third way or paano gamitin ang MELC ng ESP. The third one is bigyang prioridad, give priority sa pagtuturo at pagpili ng learning resources at paglinang ng batayang konsepto na nasa ikatlong learning competency ng paksa at ang ebidensya ng pagkaunawa nito. Ang performance task na nasa ika-4 na learning competency, yung diniscuss natin kanina, yung 4 competencies sa secondary. Number 4, gamitin ang mga module o learning resources na nabanggit sa teacher's resources ayon sa 3 hakbang sa itaas. Okay. So pag meron ka ng learning resources, you need to use it using the 1, 2, 3 steps na nabanggit a while ago. Okay. For grades 7 to 10, maaring gamitin ang mga gawain sa learner's module bilang pagtatasa or assessment ng pagkatuto. For example, sa baitang 7, unang markahan, ikatlong learning competency, paksang talento at kakayahan. So here's the learning competency and here's the gawain. Alright. So important reminder lang po, nagsisilbing minimum essentials lamang ang MELC sa kalidad or lawak or breadth, lalim, ang depth ng mga dapat matutuhan ng mga mag-aaral sa panahon ng krisis o pandemya. Ng ESP team sa central office, ang nangyayari po doon, merong mga learning competencies na na-enhanced or binago, merong niribisa upang pagbutihin ang pagkakalahad, merong mini-merged or pinagsama. For example, dalawang na ipahahayag ng ikalawa ang diwa ng una. And then merong dinadrop, isinasantabi, LC na hindi sinama sa mga MELC dahil hindi naman ito prerequisite sa mga nauna o sumunod na LC o naulit lamang ito sa katulad na LC. So, in summary, there are 3 things that happened to the previous LCs in the curriculum guide of May 2016. Merong na-enhance, merong na-merge, merong na-drop. Okay? So, here is now the chart ba ito? Or ang tawag nito? Graph, rather. Okay. Comparison between the MELC and the learning competency na nasa curriculum guide, May 2016, yung curriculum guide in May 2016. The red ones are the number of MELCs na gagamitin natin for 2020-2021. So remember, ang MELCs ay gamitin lang during this pandemic. And most probably, we will be using it within the school year 2020-2021. That was emphasized in the briefer ng MELCs. Okay? Yung learning competencies na nasa CG or the curriculum guide of May 2016 are being represented by the yellow ones. Okay? So as you can see, for grade 1, there were 21, but in the MELC now, there are just 17. In grade 2, there were 24. And then sa MELCs ngayon, meron na lang 23. For grade 3, there were 17. Ngayon, 17 na lang. 22 sa grade 3 and then 17 na lang ngayon. And notice that in number 4, hindi nawawalan or hindi naman nadadagdagan. 13. For grade 5, 31 down to 27 rather. For grade 6, 13 down to 12. Then for grade 7, 64 to 44. For grade 8, 64 to 52. And then for grade 9, 64 to 51. And then for 64, from 64, for grade 10, nagiging 56. So notice na maraming nawawala sa 7, 8, 9, and 10. As mentioned earlier, binabawasan yung paksa. Binabawasan yung paksa sa secondary for grade 7, 9, and 10. Alright. So ito yung detalye. Bilang ng binago, pinagsama, isinantabi ng mga MELCs. This will be provided naman to the trainers who will be doing this in the SDO level. So for example, in Baitang 1, in level 1, in grade 1, there were 21 in the May 2016 curriculum guide. Walang binago, walang pinagsama, pero may isinantabi. So there are only 17 number of MELCs, total number of MELCs for the school year 2020-2021. And the percentage compared to the previous CG, 81% of MELCs are being carried over from the CG of May 2016. So another example, for grade 3, there were 22, walang binago, walang pinagsama, pero may isinantabi, naging 17 na lang. Alright. For grade 2, there were 23, may binago. Curriculum, learning competency 9, 10, and 11, binago siya, ni-revise lang siya, pero walang pinagsama, walang isinantabi. So it makes 23 MELCs for grade 2. Alright. For grade 7, walang binago, walang pinagsama, pero maraming sinantabi. For grade 8, walang binago, walang pinagsama, pero maraming isinantabi. For 2016, alright, wait for a while. Mahalagang paunawa, sa paggamit ng MELCs ay kaayon sa napapanahong krisis o pandemya. Ang mga milk ay magsisilbing minimum essentials, ngunit hindi dapat isakripisyo ang kalidad. This has been mentioned earlier, the lawak and the lalim ng mga dapat matutuhan ng mga mag-aaral sa panahon ng krisis o pandemya. Kaya inaasahan pa rin ang pagpupusa, dedikasyon at commitment ng mga guro, gabay ng mga tagamasid at pagpapatupad ng mga milk na ito. So here's another example for grade 1. Pamantayan sa pagkatuto, anong ginawa ng mga members of the deliberating team doon sa central office? For example, tungkulin sa aking sarili at pamilya. Ito yung learning standards. And then for the first quarter, merong learning competency na nakikilala ang sariling gusto, interest. Look at this, pinanatili ito. Ang dahilan is tumutugon sa mga criteria ng endurance. And when you say endurance, na-mention na yan kanina, yung mga learning competencies that remains in the heart and mind of the learner, even beyond a particular test or a particular quiz or particular activity. Okay? Now let's go to the unpacking of competencies. Much have been said about the unpacking of competencies. I am so sure that a lot of my co-supervisors in the CLMD have mentioned already about unpacking of competencies. So I found it proper that I am just going to present to you a particular content of an article that I have read last night about why we should consider unpacking the competencies. So here are those answers, or here are the answers of that particular question. Number 1, teachers who do the work to unpack standards or learning competencies are the ones who understand them. Meaning to say, yung mga teachers na gumagawa ng unpacking, medyo sila yung mas lalong nakakaintindi doon sa particular learning competencies na yun. Understanding all of the standards learning competencies helps teachers wisely choose the essential or power standards. Identification of the depth of knowledge required of the standards leads to more thoughtful lesson design. Laser-like focus, take note, laser-like focus on the standards and team-created common formative assessments go hand in hand. And then the unpacking process keeps the focus on all students learning at high levels. Why? Because parang the competencies are given in a staggered basis or inuunti-unti, hinahati-hati, hindi siya in bulk. So if the teacher has the capacity of unpacking, let the teacher do the unpacking or let her unpack, because that will benefit or that will redound to the benefit of the learners. These are the suggested steps in unpacking learning targets or learning competencies. Suggested lang po. Number 1, read the standards as a team. So work with your co-teachers. And then circle the verbs. Underline the nouns and noun phrases. Determine the number of targets found within the standards. Write as separate learning targets. Remember to keep the core language intact at all times. Do not omit any part of the standard. Determine the depth of knowledge required of the standard. Pull the academic vocabulary from the standard. Unpack all of the standards before digging into how the standards will be taught and assessed. That's good. Read all of the unpacked standards to determine the standards you will prioritize. So I hope this will help us in the process of unpacking our learning targets or learning competencies. Okay? Now let's go to pagtatalunton sa bawat parts of a lesson exemplar. All right. So in the previous activity of the CLMD last week, we had our orientation in the development of learning resources or on the development of learning resources that was given by Dr. Almasan. And these are the parts of the lesson exemplar, which was also part of the discussion which was made by Dr. Almasan. So for the benefit of those who were not there in that particular orientation, may I now present the parts of the lesson exemplar. As you can see, the lesson exemplar is just like a detailed lesson plan. Meron siyang pamantayang pangnilalaman, meron siyang pamantayang pagganap, meron siyang kasanayang pampagkatuto or the learning competencies, meron siyang pangunahing konsepto or key concept. So it should be written in the template, all this information about these standards. And then, layuning pagkatuto, mayroon siyang objectives, meron siyang nilalaman. Under this nilalaman are the references and the resources. Okay? Pamamaraan ng pampagkatuto. Under it are the panimulang gawain or pagsasanay, balik-aral, pagganiyak. And then, mga gawaing pagpapaunlad, huwarang paggawa or the gawin ko part. And then, pinamatnubayang pagsasanay, gawin natin, guided activity. And then, paglalapat, yung gawin mo, application. And then, there is that evaluation, then kasunduan or assignment or takdang aralin. And then, pagninilay-nilay. Content of which or content of the pagninilay-nilay, ito yun. Ito pa din, parang sa detailed lesson plan. Bilang ng mag-aaral na nakakakuha ng 80% sa evaluasyon, bilang ng mag-aaral na nakakuha ng score na mababa sa 80% at binigyan ng karagdagang gawaing pang-remedial, mabisa ba ang mga araling pang-remedial, and so on and so forth. And then your name, and then the school and the division below. Alright, yun siya ang part ng lesson exemplar. So with that, I would like to quote Martin Luther King when he said, or Jr., when he said, somewhere along the way, we must learn that there is nothing greater than to do something for others. So all of us here are destined to do something for others. And I would like to congratulate all of us because we have done such noble action or act that would help others. Let us help our co-teachers, our co-employees in the field so that they will be fully guided as to what they are going to do, especially in addressing the problem given by the pandemic, in the delivery of instruction, and in the utilization of our most essential learning competencies. So with that, I would like to say good day to all of you and God bless us all.
And that was Dr. Maria Shelo D. Estrada, our CLMD Education Program Supervisor, regarding the talk on the most essential learning competency in ESP and SPFL. So now let's move to the next discussion regarding the unpacking of competencies based on MELT in EPP, TLE, and TVL. Let's welcome on screen Dr. Pedelina O. Huevas.
Please allow me to introduce to you the most essential learning competencies for EPP, TLE, and TVL. Let me share my slides. Now, just like the previous speaker, I wish to discuss with you the process of the determination of MELTs. Identify the components of MELTs, explore how to use the MELTs, familiarize the MELTs through a walkthrough. Now, we need to remember that all the things that we are doing now are for the welfare of more than 27 million Filipino learners in basic education. But I would like to reiterate that these MELTs will be used by the field implementers for school year 2020 to 2021 only. Now, what is MELTs? How can this help our teachers and learners during the new normal? Now, MELTs is the instruction that focus only to the most essential and indispensable competencies that our learners must acquire. These are what we call the non-negotiable. It serves as guide to teachers in addressing the instructional needs of learners while ensuring that curriculum standards are followed. And we need to remember that everything in the maths is taken or anchored in the curriculum guide. Now, how these maths are identified? Now, we need to remember that the identification of maths was done through the initiative of the DepEd Secretary, the Honorable Leonor Magtulis Briones, in collaboration with the experts in the Bureau of Curriculum Development, or BCD, and the Assessment Curriculum and Technology Research Center, or the ACTRC. Let me share to you some of the characteristics of an essential learning competency, or the MELS, which later was identified as most essential learning competency. Now, the MELS is something that would remain with learners long after a test or unit of study is completed and is useful beyond a single test or unit of study. It is applicable to real-life situations, especially during this, what we call, new normal condition. If students leave school, it will still be important for them to have this competency above many others. It is aligned with national and local standards and frameworks. It connects the content to higher concepts across content areas. Now, how did these competencies were streamlined into MELS? Now, competencies were originally taken from the K-12 curriculum guides. From there, competencies were extracted and identified as essential learning competencies based on the needs of times. Now, in this time of national health emergency brought about by COVID-19, those competencies were again scrutinized and become the most essential learning competencies. These have now become the non-negotiables in the curriculum, meaning this should be taught to the students taking the particular specializations. Now, for the subject EPP and TLE, there are 883 original learning competencies from the curriculum guide, which was reduced to 749, and that becomes now the most essential learning competencies, or again, the non-negotiable. That is only about 85% left from the original LCs from the curriculum guide. That is 15% has been removed. For the TVL specializations and the SPTVE, or Special Program for Technical Vocational Education, there are around 95 specializations, and more learning competencies are here because it comprises 4 components, which is the home economics, or HE, the industrial arts, or the and the information and communication technology, or ICT, and the agri-fishery arts, or AFA. No MELS has been released yet, as this may affect the national assessment. However, learning modules has been released to all schools offering TVL specializations long before this COVID-19. So what will happen to them? The school's division offices are now taking the initiatives on how to go through it in coordination with the regional office. Now, there are 6 components of MELS. You have 1, the quarter, the content standards, the performance standards, the most essential learning competencies, duration, and codes. So what are they? Quarter refers to the time or period where topical coverage of a particular subject in a grade level is given. It is located in the first column in the MELS. So you can see the red one. And next is the content standard. It identifies and sets the essential understanding that should be learned in a specific period. This covers specified scope of sequential topics within each learning strand, domain, theme, or component. Content standards answer the question, what should the learners know, do, and understand? It is located in the second column of the next. Next is the performance standards. What is performance standards? This describes the abilities and skills that learners are expected to demonstrate in relation to the content standards. The integration of knowledge, understanding, and skills is expressed through creation, innovation, and adding value to products, performance during the independent work or in collaboration with others. Now, as teachers, we teach our students how to learn. So the performance standards can tell what can learners do with what they know. How well must learners do their work? How well do learners use their learning or understanding in the new normal situations? How do learners apply their learning or understanding in real-life context? What tools and measures should learners use to demonstrate what they know? It is located in the third column of the MELS. Next is the most essential learning competencies. This refers to the knowledge, understanding, skills, and attitudes that students need to demonstrate in every lesson or learning activity. It is located in the fourth column of the MELS. Next component is the duration. It tells us about the period of time a particular competency will be taught. It is located in the fifth column of the MELS. Next is the code. Now, this was initiated in order to identify learning competencies that are connected and exhibited spiral progression. These ELSs bear the same code number and is connected to the Learning Resources Management and Development System. This is beneficial for the school heads and supervisors in monitoring the pace and progress of the lessons delivered by the teacher. It is located in the last column of the MELS. Now, it can be easily understood this way. TLE is the subject. DM, which stands for dressmaking, is the specialization. 9 stands for the grade level. SK stands for the lesson or skirt, because the students will be sewing skirt. And an I stands for quarter. The AC stands for the week, or A, B, C, week 1, 2, and 3. And 1 refers to learning outcome number 1. The XE here refers to the home economics. That's all. Thank you very much. And to unpack the MELS, we are lucky to have with us today the Senior Education Program Specialist from the Bureau of Curriculum Division, or BCD, of DepEd Central Office. Please help me welcome Mr. Christopher Valiente.
Maayong adlaw po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Christopher Valiente mula po sa Bureau of Curriculum Development. I am here today to discuss with you the unpacking of most essential learning competencies in the area of EPP, TLE, or the Edukasyong Pantahanan at Pangkabuhayan, and Technology and Livelihood Education. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the people from DepEd Davao region. First, Ma'am Evelyn R. Petalbero, the Regional Director. Next, the Chief Education Supervisor of Curriculum and Learning Management Division, Ma'am Janet. And of course, our friend from Region 11, the Regional Supervisor of EPP, TLE, and TBL, Ma'am Pedelina O. Huevos. I'm sure that Ma'am Inday have already discussed to you some of the premises as regards the utilization of most essential learning competencies in this area. So to continue, there are MELCs that have broad stroke competencies which expected to be unpacked by the teachers. So in our examples here, drawn from the MELCs of grade 6, so we have here buys and sells products based on needs. So if you will unpack this MELCs, it will give you define needs and wants. We also have identify the needs of the community. And we also have here develops a product. Next, sells products based on needs and demands in school and community. So if you will unpack these MELCs, it will give you prepares costing of product, compute or markup price, decide the selling price. And in our last row, we have here enumerate sources of family income. So the unpacked MELCs for this will be sell products based on community needs and demands, explain family income. We also have discussed the importance of income and enumerate sources of family income. So in the succeeding slides, I will show you the detailed way on how to unpack the most essential learning competencies. So in our example here, this particular curriculum guide is the curriculum guide of agri-crop production. So just to give you an information that we really don't identify MELCs for the specialization subjects because it might have an impact on the national certification. And although we have some suggested specializations, I think that will be discussed later by Ma'am Huevos. So to continue, our target competency was from the unit of competency lesson 8, caring and maintaining crops. So ang learning outcomes po natin ay applied pest control. And our target learning competency is perform monitoring of pest incidents based on prescribed procedure. So in unpacking a certain competency, so we have to consider the codes and the content. So if you will notice sa code ay this particular LO and the learning competencies, meaning LO1 hanggang dun sa 1.5, ay ituturo po natin ng second quarter, weeks 1 to 5, as per coding. And to elaborate this further, let me show you the slide. Okay. So kung makikita po natin, kung papansinin po natin mabuti ang ating learning competencies, some of the contents was not actually present doon po sa ating learning competencies. So again, our target is perform monitoring of pest incidents based on prescribed procedure. So this will be taught for second grading, weeks 1 to 5. So I know in the field, ang ginagawa po natin ay budget of work. But in my suggested format of how to unpack learning competencies, ito po ay tinatawag nating calendar of learning objectives. Because yung hindi pa po na-unpack na learning competency, tinatawag po natin siyang terminal objective, and then the unpack learning competency ay pwede po natin siyang tawaging enabling objectives. So here in our calendar of objectives, kung makikita po natin, again po, Unit of Competency, Lesson 8, Caring and Maintaining Crops, or CA competency na in-unpack po natin, which is 1.1, perform monitoring of pest incidents based on prescribed procedure. And then, as per coding, ito po ay weeks 1 to 5 nating ituturo. Pero ito pong nakuha po nating or naging result po ng ating unpack, 3 weeks. Meaning, yung first 3 weeks, yung A to C, ay ito na po ang ating ituturo. Ito pong ating learning objectives. So, ang ating pong content, kung makikita po natin, ay nag-reflect na po siya dito po sa ating learning objectives. So, if you will elaborate this further, ang second grading po ay nagsisimula sa 3rd week of August. So, kung makikita po natin yung duration o yung hours per day, yung mga madadali na learning competency, hanggang doon po sa identify the different types of pests, mollusks, ay ituturo lamang po natin ng 1 hour. So, kung titingnan po natin dito, yung atin pong week 3, which is equivalent to 8 hours, ay naituro na po natin yung learning objectives 1.1.1 hanggang pong 1.1.7. And as I mentioned earlier, yun pong ating content ay present na po sa ating learning objectives. And then yung discuss the safety procedures in monitoring pest incidents, so binigyan po natin siya ng 2 hours because kung titingnan po natin sa Bloom's Taxonomy of Verbs, ang discuss po ay nagpo-fall na siya sa application level. Okay? So kaya medyo mabigat po yung ating duration. And then for week 4, yung record pest incidents in the locality because matagal-tagal po yan ang pagre-record ng data or pag-gather ng data, especially po doon po sa context ng bata, binigyan po natin siya ng 8 hours or 1 week. And then of course, the reporting of the result monitoring of pest incidents in the locality ay 8 hours din po, or it will be taught in September week 1. So medyo matagal po yan, kaya po almost 1 week po yung nilagay natin. Again, these hours per day, ito po ay suggestion lang po. Meaning, you can contextualize this or we give you the leeway on the duration, but as per the identified MELCs, these are non-negotiables if you would see or if you read the briefer of these MELCs. So, yun lang po. I think that's the end of my discussion regarding the unpacking of most essential learning competencies. And the rest of the slides will be discussed by the regional supervisor, Ma'am Huevos. Muli po, maraming salamat, and we hope that you are positive with regards to the learning continuity plan of DepEd, na hindi po dapat nawawala ang education in these trying times because education is the key to success. Maraming salamat po sa inyo.
Thank you so much, Sir Chris. We hope to always hear curriculum updates from the
And that's our speakers, Dr. Pedilina Oevas, the CLMDFs, and also Sir Chris Valiente, the SEPs in the Bureau of Curriculum Development in DepEd Central Office regarding the most essential learning competencies in EPP, TLE, and TVL. So the last session, let's move on to the unpacking of competencies based on MALC in MAPE learning area. Let's have on screen Ma'am Jesseline B. De La Cuesta, the CLMDX.
SPA, SPS, and SPEL. But before anything else, I would like to thank our regional director, Director Evelyn Cataldero, our assistant regional director, Ines Asuncion, of course my Chief Janet Veloso. And I would like also to welcome my counterpart, or the chief of all officers for the curriculum. And I would like to welcome also my counterpart in the division offices for MAPEH, SPA, SPS, and SPED. So to division counterpart from Davao City, we have Dr. Elsie Gagape, Sir Kagape, Sir Segaino, Sir John Galan. For Panabo City, we have Apolinario Macabulos, Sir Ray de Ocampo, and Sir Ray Carlon. For Tagum City, Sir Isaias Maguyop, Sir Darwin Suyat, and Sir Edgar Tangalang. For Davao de Oro, we have Sir Dexter Pequeña. For Davao del Norte, Miss Rachel Makia and Miss Marlene Rico. For Digo City, we have Sir Angel Bisaga Jr. and Ma'am Arlene Barba. For Davao del Sur, Sir Aldous Bodiki and Ma'am Sherilyn Cometa. For Davao Oriental, Occidental, we have Sir Rodrigo Milay, Miss Irene Caballero. For Davao, for Mati City, we have Sir Jude Pariolin and Leia Pariolin. For Davao Oriental, we have Sir Bernabe Basilisco and Ma'am Connie Wong. And from the Island Garden City, or Igapos, we have Sir Romulo Eliseo, Ma'am Arlene Lobrado, and Ma'am Lourdes Manlangit. And of course, I would like also to welcome all the participants, the teachers of MAPEH, SPA, SPS, and SPED. But I will explain to you what is MELC all about. So the Department of Education Region 11, in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the consequent shortened academic year, the Department of Education, through Bureau of Curriculum Development and the Curriculum Standard Development Division, has produced a list of the most essential learning competencies. So it was done in order to ensure that the grade level standards, along with the corresponding content and performance standards set for each learning areas, are still attained. In the process of identifying the MELC, the endurance criterion was used as the sole determiner, guided by the requirement that the learning competencies, or the LCs, be useful in lifelong learning. The group of specialists in charge of the MAPEH curriculum recognizes the role of the subject in providing the physical health, cultural literacies, artistic expression, skills necessary in acquiring the knowledge and values to live a more meaningful life. Further, The milk is identified are those that work in close association in other competencies in other subjects, thus maintaining the curricular quality of integration. So this is the most essential learning competency matrix for the MELT. For MAPEH, music, art, and physical education. So first question, what is MELT? So MELT is the most essential learning competency. It serves as reference to assist the teachers in identifying the most important learning competencies to be developed, acquired by the learners and must be prioritized in this crisis situation. MELT are praised, and deemed essential learning competencies in the achievement of content and performance standards. Remember, MELT is school year 2020-21 only. Kasi meron nga tayong COVID-19. So, here's the sample of the MELT for music, art, physical education, and health education. For example, for grade 2 and grade 2 quarter 2, to demonstrate the melodic contour with movement. Nirephrase ito ng demonstrate melodic contour through movement, music writing, may it be in paper or air, and visual imagery. The same with the art, physical education, and health education. So as a general rule, learning competencies are retained. When we say retained, it is satisfies the endurance criterion, which greatly contributes to lifelong learning and is a prerequisite skill to the next grade level. Some are merged or clustered if they have the same objective of learning intentions, thus can be combined into one comprehensive learning competency. Some are dropped if they are too specific and the articulation is similar to that of learning topic skills, deemed appropriate to be introduced in the earlier quarter or grade level or moved to a later quarter or grade level. So some are dropped. So we said before, some are retained, some are merged, some are dropped in the MELT. So we have the K-12. Of course, we know the K-12. And then, after the K-12, nahimay-himay pa talaga yan for the essential learning competency. And then, dahil lang sa pandemic, at nagiging final MELT or the most essential learning competency. So the K-12 essential MELT is here. The MELT is not a departure from the K-12 curriculum. The standards are the same. They are retained. Then it focuses on the attainment of the 21st century skills. And of course, the codes and the tags are retained for the merged and retained competencies. All learning areas will be taught. So we have here the current CGs versus the MELT. So for the total of all the subjects and the all grade levels, from grade 1 to senior high, we have the current CGs of 14,148. And then here in the MELT, we retain only 5,548. But for the MAPEH, first we have 84. For the grade 2, we have 82 MELT. For grade 3, we have 102 MELT. Grade 4, 92. For grade 5, 9. Grade 6, 96. Grade 7, 118. Grade 8, the same with grade 7. Grade 9, we have 114, and grade 10 is 92. From current CGs of 1,436, nagiging 997 na lang. So, kumunti dito sa milk. So, we have here also the comparison of the milk per subject or per learning area. So, like in grade 1 or the current CGs, we have 358. For the ELC, diba, from K to 12 to LC to MELC, so nagiging 286 for the LLC. And then to the MELC, nagiging 223. Later, I will explain to you kung bakit siya bumaba. The same with the arts. We have here from 390 to 333, and then the final is 334. I don't know, as you can see, nagdagdag pa ng isa sa milk. So dito sa graph, makikita mo talaga na bumaba yung nasa milk natin. So except sa grade 9. And then we have also here for physical education, and the final MELC is 165. And also for the health, so we have here the 339 for the current CGs, so the ALC is 295, and for the MELC, it's only 276 MELC. So for field implementers like the SEOs, you are encouraged to contextualize the most essential learning materials in order to accommodate the varying context of learners, teachers, learning environment, and support structures, considering both the content and the performance standards. So, how to use the MELC? Here's a sample MELC of grade 2. I will give you example for quarter 1. Unrest, rhythmic patterns, and time to be sure. So you will use that content standard. So we have also here the performance standard. And here on the right side is the most essential learning competency. So sa week 1, ilang days yan? Sa music lang yan ha. Week 2, we have 3. And week 4 to 5, and to week 6 to 8. So, bakit ilan lang isang content standard at nagiging 1, 2, 3, 4 siya hanggang 8 weeks? So, gawin ninyo is, you add more sub-topic or aralin in every learning competencies to hit the targeted LC to 1 week to 6 weeks. The same with to add more topics or aralin in every MELC used in one setting. So you can use that for the whole week. You add on aralin in every MELC. Okay. So the same with the for the art, the same. For the art, meron na talagang siyam na most essential competency. So for week 1 to 9, yan ang mga competencies ninyo. So budget the time, halimbawa sa week 1, so discusses the concept that art possesses elements, pwede kayo magdagdag ng aralin para makuha ninyo ang 1 week. Then, 3rd week, 2nd week, hanggang 8 weeks. Kasi, pag isa lang ang competencies ang gagamitin mo, 1 day lang yun. So, dapat dagdagan mo ng mga aralin. So first day, iba, basta for the whole week, yan yung more dami kang statistics na ituturo mo sa mga bata. So the same with physical education, we have only 4 milk. So you must dagdag in some of the physical education are embedded also to other LPs. That's why yung aming ginawa sa grade 3, nagiging ano siya, nagiging 9. Yung isang competency siya, marami siyang modules na ginawa namin. Kasi nagdagdag kami ng mga aralin. So, yan ang nangyari. So, the same with grade 6 health. So, we have, for the first quarter, we have 5 maths embedded. So, ganun pa rin. So, week 1, 2, 3, dalawahan, describe personal health issues and concerns and demonstrate self-management skills. So, gagamitin mo yan or gagawin mo yan in 1 to week 1 to 3 weeks. So, sabihin, you dagdag more activities, more aralin. Okay. So, the same. So, we are finished with, we're done with grades 1 to grade 10. This time, we will tackle also the senior high school for grade 11 and 12. Iba yung senior high school kagaya sa atin kasi meron silang kumbaga first semester. Yung first semester nila, kumbaga sa ating elementary and junior high, para siyang first and second grading. And then the second semester, nagiging para siyang for grade 11 and 12, we have the physical education and health. So, yung tinatawag nating HOPE, Health Optimizing Physical Education. So, we have also here. So, for grade 11, physical education is on first semester or first and second quarter. And then, here's the example or sample milk for grade 11. The same with elementary and junior high. So, iba lang talaga ang kanilang parang grading, first grading, ang tawag sa kanila ay second semester, first semester. Okay, so, ganun pa rin. First quarter, meron silang 9 milk. So, hanggang ilang weeks yan? Hanggang week 1 to week 10. So, sa second quarter natin, 7 milk. So, sa 7 milk, meron tayong 7 milk, week 2 to 10. So, kailangan you must dagdag. So, the teacher talaga ay dapat meron siyang tatla ang gagawin niya. The following day, wala na siya. So, dapat i-plan niya, i-budget niya kung ano ang kanyang ituturo for the whole week. Isang competencies, tagtagin niyo yan para dagdag ang game. Okay. For grades 12, physical education is on second semester or third. So third quarter, 7 milk, and for 4 weeks in every week. So this time, we'll be going to discuss the competencies of grades 11 and 12 for sports track. So nakasama pa rin natin sa MAPEH ito, pero senior high lang sila. So sa sports track, iba sa kanila, meron silang mga iba't ibang mga topic na kaagad. Like sa grades 11, they are more on the following topics like safety and first aid, human movement, fundamentals of coaching, sports officiating and activity management, psychosocial aspects of sports and exercise, and fitness testing and basic exercise programming. Itong physical fitness testing natin, meron tayo niyan sa elementary at high school. And it can be magbigay tayo before, binibigay natin yan sa July. Pero ngayon, dahil wala pa tayong face-to-face, so gagawin yan sa bahay, meron din tayong ginawa na physical fitness na video. It will be given to the whole of Region 11 division, courtesy of, naka-assign po dyan, courtesy of the Davao del Norte division. So, I would like to thank Ma'am B, Sir Chief Mogis, And of course, Miss Giselle, the coordinator of that project. And I would like also to thank the teachers and the models and the actors for that video. So, in the next siya dahil materials yan siya, dupaan pa rin yan siya sa quality assurance. So bukas o sa sunod na mga araw, makikita natin ang ating physical fitness video. Okay, so yan yung ating fitness testing and basic exercise. So doon tayo natapos na natin yan sa elementary and high school. For the grade 12 sports club, so ang kanilang topic naman ay fitness, more sports, and recreational leadership. So maybe the next days, meron din tayong mga lesson exemplars na ipapakita sa inyo sa mga selected nating mga trainers. Hindi ko na muna sabihin dito kung sino yung mga trainers natin, pero makikita natin sa susunod ng mga araw. Okay. So, the same pa rin sa first semester, 7 to 17 weeks. So, himay-mayin, dagdagan ng mga aralin or mga activities para makuha mo yung 17 weeks in 7 meals. Okay? So, kailangan ang teacher ay maging, talaga, maganda kanilang strategies, mga activities para sa ating mga kabataan. Okay. So, part pa rin sa senior high natin, sa specialization natin ay art and design. So, dalawa ang atin sa MAPEH, no? Meron tayong art and design and sports track. So, for the sports track for grades 11 and 12, for arts and design, we have here the different topics of the grade 11. So, the topic for first semester, we have creative industries. So, the creative industries, yan yung art and design appreciation and production. Meron din tayong creative industries 2, performing arts. When you say performing arts, movement talaga yan. Okay. So, alam na yan ng mga senior high schools natin, saka mga SDOs natin ng mga apps. Kasi pumupunta talaga yan sila doon mag-monitoring. So, sa arts and design, ito yung specific topic ng grade 12 din. So, meron silang physical and personal development in the arts, developing Filipino identity in the arts. They have integrated elements and principles of organization in the arts. Meron din silang leadership and management in different arts and design, and production in performing arts. When you say production, siguro ang kanilang gagawin yan, as general, kanilang natutunan, gagawa sila ng production. Of course, may mga performers. So, yan yung kanilang mga activity. Be sure na ang teacher talaga ay magiging creative. Meron na tayong marami sa YouTube, na marami tayong makukuha mga lessons, lalo na ngayon, dahil sa pandemic, meron na tayong mga free na mga webinar. So, you grab, take chance. Kasi wala na talaga tayong training na face-to-face. Even before, wala din tayong mga training kasi mahal din kaya mag-travel. So, the good for this pandemic is lahat ng nasa field ay makikita na nila sa webinar. At it's free. Kagaya ngayon, kagaya sa ating LMS, yung mga participants from division offices, pwede rin silang yung ibang teacher na manood. Kasi gagawa din sila ng kanilang sariling module kung gusto sila magawa para talaga yung kanilang hilig sa computer, sa technology natin. Kumbaga, wow, marunong ako nito. So, lahat tayo ay nanibago. Except yung talagang mahilig sa computer or mga computer literate. So, sa ating mga teachers, even the teachers, even the tayo, mga supervisors, talaga naninibago din tayo sa ganitong mga training. Pero exciting, di ba? Nakakatawa na nakakalito paminsan, kagaya nito na mag-lecture ka na wala kang audience, Pero I know, virtually, andyan lang kayo sa harap ko. So, ganun lang yon. So, again, sa arts and design, we have the topics are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, 5 topics. So, ganun pa rin, meron din tayong example dito sa first grading. So, 3 MELCs yan in 8 weeks. So, himay-himayin pa rin natin kung ano yung nasa sa MELC. So, at the end of this session, or at the end of my lecture, for those who are interested to have the MELC, just actually na-send ko sa mga na-send ko na sa mga supervisors, sa mga counterparts ko sa division offices. Pero kung gusto niyo direct from me, pwede rin. Just PM me, alam yung pangalan ko, Jocelyn B. de la Cuesta. So, hanapin mo lang sa Messenger. Sabihin mo lang na kailangan mo ng SPS milk. Kailangan ko ng SPS, SPA milk. Kailangan ko ng grade 6 milk. Kailangan ko ng senior high, or dyan sa Hope or sports track and sports track and arts and design. So, i-share ko lang ito, nakakatawa kahapon. So, sabi sa group chat namin sa mga regional of supervisor. So, sabi niya, Nick, friendship, saan kaya, meron ka bang arts and design? And kung meron niya, nasa pinadalang milk na sa lahat-lahat. Ilang kayang pages yun? Yung first na milk natin, 599, dinagdag ang SPS at saka SPA, so something like 500 plus. So, hindi ko makita. Ito, you want, himay-himay? Di ba, naka-grade 6 na, grades 1 to grade 6, naka-junior high na siya, naka-senior high na siya, meron siya sports track, meron siya arts and design, at meron pa akong, yung SPA, saka SPS na nakahimay-himay na rin. And I would like also to thank the help of Paulo Salvo. Siya yung naghimay-himay na yon. Kasi pag hindi natin himay-himayin, pag ibigay natin sa lahat sa kanila, malilito ka sa paghahanap ng pages 1 to 500 class. Bakit kaya ang ulo nun? So those who are interested or you want to have a copy of that milk, just PM me. PM is the key. Para naman online, PM is the key. Okay. Pero libre lang ito, wala lang itong bayad. Okay? So at the end of my sharing, I would like to share with you the quotation of our friend Walt Disney. He said, "We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths." Di ba, mga bagong mga pamamaraan? So, natapos din natin pala yung, paano ba ito magpasok sa webinar? So, pindot-pindot siya. Anong link? Nakakatawa, nakaka-enjoy. So, ganun din. Another thing we have here, don't fear of the technology. Just embrace it. By Anthony J. D'Angelo. So, huwag kayo matakot. Kasi noon dati-dati, matakot din ako dahil baka yung aking pindutin, ma-erase lahat yung aking file. So, explore lang talaga tayo. So, kagaya sa mga lecture natin, yung kahapon, so, para ba, paano yan? Sige lang, you just explore the new thing. And lastly, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it. Move with it, and join the dance by Alan Watts. So thank you very much and good day.
And that was Ma'am Jesseline B. De La Cuesta, or CLMD, Education Program Supervisor, regarding the talk on the most essential learning competencies in MAPEH. So, okay pa ba kayo dyan? Kahit malakas yung ulan? Okay, so before we will go to our open forum, allow me to read some of your shout outs. So, controller, can we have it on screen? Okay, from Ana Ludumadag, Penarejo. Hello po sa mga kumari kong kasama ko nanunood. Si Glenda Mole, Maylene Untalan, Semiona Floreza, and Antonieta Herona from Magsaysay Elementary School. Yan, hello po sa lahat. Then, from Ruela Melendres, still watching po from Alihal National High School. So, hello po sa lahat ng mga taga-Alihal National High School. From Queenie Marie Alas, still watching with Queenie Alas, Cebolano Elementary School and Carmen National High School virtual hug elbow cuff. Okay? Elbow cuff. From Magdalena Zoilo, pa-shoutout naman sa mga gwapa o gwapo na mga teachers sa Tubod Elementary School. Especially to our most energetic and active principal, Ma'am Ging. O, basta si Ma'am Ging. And thank you also sa mga TWG. Wait muna, Sir Mikey. Wala mo ko nauman. Okay, next from TWG nga mga gwapa o gwapo og sa mga host. Okay, thank you po. Next. From Marilyn Esmala, I love Carmen. Pa-shoutout po sa lahat ng teachers ng Carmen National High School, lalong-lalo na sa aming principal na si Dr. Lordeline A. Buyo. Next, from Irene Emphasis, pa-shoutout po sa lahat ng mga teachers ng Alihal Elementary School, lalo na sa pinakamaganda po naming principal, Ma'am Rochelle R. Capon. And then, another from Princess Ana Ramos, pa-shoutout po from Carmen National High School, Tibulaw Extension. Okay, I guess magbabasa pa ako, Sir Mikey, ng tatlo. Three more shout-outs before we will proceed to the open forum. Okay, from Clark de Monteverde. Ma'am Huevas, good afternoon. Still watching from Carmen Central Elementary School. EPP ay kailangan na mag-aral during pandemic. Okay? And next, Ma'am Sharon Hivertas, still watching from Alihal National High School, Mangalcal Extension, headed by our school principal, Sir Nestor H. Ranera. And lastly, okay, from Ma'am Sharon Hivertas again, good and happy rainy afternoon, everyone. Watching from Alihal National High School, Mangalcal Extension. God bless. Okay, so thank you so much, my dear teachers, for participating in today's session. So now, let's go to our open forum. As I observed, wala pa rin meron pong nagtanong. So, let me call in our selected school heads who will answer your respective questions. So, let's welcome on screen the principal of Pinta Sabarat Elementary School, Sir Eduardo Colinco. Teka muna ha. Okay. And then another school head. Nandyan po ba si Sir? Wala daw ang speakers. So wala. So pwede po ba si Sir Nolly or wala daw? Okay. So hello, Sir Nolly. I love Carmen.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. I love Carmen. Ano ba yung mga school heads na naka-assign for this afternoon?
So wala daw sila, sir. So okay lang po, sir, na kayo
Sure, go
yung
ahead.
answer. Okay, we have 3 questions, Sir Nolly. So first, sino ang mga inaasahang gagawa ng kontekstualisadong kagamitan para sa MELCs?
Sino ang mga inaasahang gagawa ng kontekstualisadong kagamitan para sa milk, the contextualized material for milks? Who among us, who among you, teachers, who will be preparing the contextualized materials, no, out of the milks provided to you? I think I already mentioned about this, no? If I'm not wrong, yesterday, that contextualized materials will be done by you, our teachers. I would like to remind everyone that one of the things that you will be doing while you are working at home, no, starting June 1, 2020, di ba? June 1 i-require yung services ng ating teachers, no? After a very long summer vacation, no? Mula pa nung March kasi nag-suspend tayo ng klase until May, walang klase. So starting June 1, na-require na yung services ng ating mga teachers, but then following the arrangement, work from home. And at that time, no, during that time, no, starting June 1, our teachers are being encouraged, no, as one of the activities that you will be doing while you are at home is to make a contextualized materials based on the milks that is being provided to you, no? So yon. So sino ang gagawa? It means na kayo po yon, teacher, ang gagawa ng contextualized materials out of the milks being provided to your end. Yun po yung sagot doon, Ma'am Mitch.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Nolly. Should I ask this, the second question? Controller, please, how to contextualize the milks?
Kailangan pa ba nating i-contextualize yung milks? Yun na yun, no? Yun na yun. Bali standard yung milks, no, that is extracted out of the Philippine learning competencies, no? Bali yung milks kasi natin, tinawag na milks kasi gi-compress lang yung learning competencies natin from huge numbers of competencies, no, na ginamit natin as we start the K-12 curriculum, i-compress yan at sa ngayon ay tinawag natin na MELCs. I also mentioned about this during the open forum this morning, di ba?
Okay, thank you, Sir Nolly. And lastly, sir, how long the MELCs will be used? Babalik po ba tayo sa curriculum guide pag wala ng pandemic?
Parang ang nagtanong nito ay siya ring nagtatanong kaninang umaga, because I am very much sure that this question is being answered during the open forum this morning, no. But for the sake, no, baka ibang teacher yung nagtanong at saka maybe during the open forum this morning ay nakaligtaan yung mapakinggan, no, ang open forum this morning. Actually, milks, it didn't came out because of the pandemic, no, brought by COVID-19. As per information, as per information through different conferences that I attended, central office have already this move, no, na magawa ng MELCs out of the huge numbers of learning competencies that we have in the Department of Education. Kahit nung wala pang pandemic, no, kahit wala pa nung pandemic, ay nagsimula ng nag-isip, no, ang Department of Education about MELCs. Kasi medyo nakita na sa sobrang dami ng learning competencies, para bang hindi rin may turo ang lahat, no. That is why MELCs was born, no? So hindi ibig sabihin na dahil sa because of COVID-19, no, because of this pandemic ay andyan yung MELC, no. Hindi po yun ang idea na yan, no? How long the milks will it be used, no? So it will be used until that DepEd could not find other ways na ma-improve, no? Gaya ng ating mga previous curriculum na ginagamitan ng iba't ibang competencies, no? Kahit ano-ano na yung tawag doon. Mayroon na tayong Philippine Elementary Learning Competencies, iba yung sa secondary, no? Until dumating yung K-12 curriculum, no? Kinumpres din yung anong tawag dito, competencies. Then may nakita na naman no, na it needs improvement. Kaya andito yung tinatawag natin na MELCs, no? And I have to reiterate, no, I would like to reiterate this na ang MELC ay hindi dumating, no, because of COVID-19. This is one of the innovations, this is one of the improvement of the Department of Education, initiated by the Department of Education na para ma-comply or para maituro lahat ng competencies ay yun, no? Para bang gimeri yung ibang learning competencies na halos magkapare-pareho lang. If you were able to follow the different presentations, di ba, kung paano gitrim down yung number of competencies na tinatawag natin ngayon na MELC, no? Yun ang dahilan, no? Because some of the competencies ay halos magkapare-pareho lang yung kanyang outcome, no? Magkapare-pareho lang halos yung needed output coming from our students. Kaya nagiging kukunti yung number of competencies na tinatawag natin ngayon at present na MELC, no? Na most essential learning competencies. So how long depende na yan sa Department of Education. Hindi ibig sabihin, ito yun yung sinabi ko kaninang umaga. It doesn't mean na the time na we could already recover, makarecover na tayo nitong pandemic, hindi ibig sabihin na mawala din ang MELC, no? It's not, that is not the idea, no? Patuloy tayong gagamit ng MELC until such time na magkaroon na naman ng innovations ang Department of Education. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Noli, for that informative answers, even though ikaw lang isa. And also, thank you for your time, Sir Noli. I love Carmen.
I love Carmen.
I love Carmen. Okay, Sir Noli, I guess that's all. So, thank you so much, sir.
What would be the next after this? After the
Announcement na lang po. Announcement.
sige, didiretso muna ako ng kukunting announcement. I would like to remind our teachers as well as our school heads that as per DepEd Order number 7, Series 2020, that is our school calendar for school year 2020-2021, starting the month of August, no, baka nakaligtaan nating i-review yung basis natin for this school year, yung ating school calendar. Baka nakaligtaan nating basahin or nakaligtaan nating i-review ano yung mga salient points doon. Based on that DepEd order, no, starting this month of August until April of 2021, our services during Saturdays are already required, no? All Saturdays beginning the month of August, no, beginning this month of August, our services are already required, no? So it is understood, no? I already communicated with our SDS about this matter this morning. Part of our work from home scheme ay kasali na yung Saturday, no? Kasali natin sa trabaho, kasali sa work from home yung Saturday, no? There are teachers, no? There are companions of us, no, teachers who are Sabbath keepers, no? Yung kanilang pananampalataya ay natapat sa tuwing araw ng Sabado, no? So, balikan na rin natin yung sa DepEd Order number 7. If your religious belief falls on Saturdays, your services, no, you are not forced to render your services on Saturdays. Instead, you will be doing this on Sundays. Basahin niyo yung DepEd Order, that is paragraph number 6 of DepEd Order number 7, Series 2020. So for all of you teachers, for all of the school heads included in your report, weekly accomplishment report starting this month of August ay magiging 6 na araw na, no? Because it will already include all Saturdays starting this month of August. Okay? And of course, we already received, no, we already received soft copies of some of the modules which are already quality assured by the regional office. So we will now start, no? I hope that our secondary school heads made already an arrangement. How are you going to reproduce the modules, no? So that as early as this time you could start reproducing this one, and hopefully, no, hopefully before August 24 ma-distribute na sa ating mga teachers, and our teachers could distribute this one to their respective students through their parents, no. Sana matapos yung reproduction before the scheduled capability building of your respective parents or their class advisors. Nang sa ganun ay maisalin niyo doon sa capability building, may discuss ninyo doon, may salin ninyo sa discussion with the presence of the parents of your respective school respective students, no? So make an arrangement, no? Make an arrangement in the elementary level. We have already this arrangement, no, on how are we going, on how they will the manner, no, the manner of reproducing the modules. So your questions, our dear teachers, if when these modules will be available, starting tomorrow, elementary level will start reproducing the modules from grade 1 to grade 6. No? Hindi pa available yung kinder kasi yung kinder ay hindi pa tapos. No? Hindi pa tapos. As I said, there are already selected learning areas, although it's not complete, but we are happy that we could now start reproducing the modules so that our class advisors can include this in their capability building with the parents of the respective students. No? So, again, thank you for your cooperation. Good afternoon, mabuhay, and I love Carmen. Thank you.
Yes, I love Carmen. Thank you so much, Sir Not. So now for more announcements. So let's have the top 5 early birds. Controller, please show it on screen. The top 5 early birds for this day. Okay, so the attendance response for day 2 session. So as you can see, there's a percentage there in every level, the elementary, junior high school, senior high school, and else. Next slide. There are 632 responses. And then the top 5 early birds in the elementary level. So congratulations to Ma'am Sikina Donna from Alihal Elementary School, Manligues Mary Grace from Tubod Elementary School, De La Cruz Maricar from Alihal Elementary School, and Samiliano Jelin from ALS. And then again, Sarusan Ma'am Jovelyn from Carmen Central Elementary School SPED Center. So congratulations, teachers. For our secondary level, okay, we have Piquero Raydin Lin from Carmen National High School, And then Antal Marijin from Alihal National High School, Mangalkal Extension. And then Villarubia Emmeline from Mabuhay National High School. Derecho Marianais from Carmen National High School. And Benito Cristabel from Carmen National High School. And I guess the overall, so the Carmen District overall early bird. So congratulations once again to Pequero Raiden Lin from Carmen National High School, Sekina Donna from Alihal Elementary School, Antal Marijin from Alihal National High School, Mangalkal Extension, Villarubia Emmeline from Mabuhay National High School, and Derecho Marianais from Carmen National High School. So thank you so much. And then I would like to inform all our participants who are with us watching about tomorrow. So tomorrow, day 3, it's already the day 3 of our 1 week district training about LMS. So tomorrow, the first hour, we have the plenary session. And then after that, we will be having a breakout session per key stage. So iba yung sa elementary, there will be other link in the elementary levels and levels elementary level, and also junior high school level and senior high school level. So abangan niyo po yung mga links. So 1 hour lang po yung plenary natin bukas, and then after that breakout session na tayo. So God bless to the program host in each level, and also the simulators. So God bless to your return demo and demo. And then so on screen we have the Katami link, so you can take a picture of the link or scan the QR code and then answer the evaluation form for this day. And also, sige, hintayin ko muna ng mga ilang segundo for picture. Then you can also scan the QR code. And then the next is the link for day 3, session 1 for tomorrow. Controller, can you please show it on screen? The day 3 day 3 session 1 link. And then also the CID YouTube channel link, meron ba controller, Sir Mikey? The CID YouTube channel link, or wala na? Okay, I guess wala. Okay, just wait for tomorrow. Maybe some of the members of the technical working group will send you via Messenger the link of the day 3 session 1 and also the link of CID YouTube channel. So, okay, thank God we ended early. I guess it's 4:16. So, let me read once again some of our shout outs before we will end muna. Okay, let me read some of the shout outs. Controller, can you please show it on screen? Okay, from Eileen Mensedor, thank you for this very comprehensive webinar. I love Carmen from Magsaysay Elementary School. Hi, Ma'am Eileen. And then next, kasi marami yung nag-shoutout na talagang detailed yun, di ba? So, let's see. Okay, from Emmeline Sarayno, isang maulan na hapon po sa lahat. Isang maulan na hapon po sa iyo, ma'am. And then from Riza May Espanola, still watching po from Tuganay ES. So last two na lang, Sir Mikey. Okay, from Efrelyn Sikina, good afternoon, still watching po from Alihal National High School. And lastly, Okay, from Milmarie Q. Honas, still watching from Al's Carmen District. So anyway, kahit hindi ko nabasa yung lahat ng comments nyo, thank you so much, my dear teachers, for participating and for staying until the end of this live stream. So see you tomorrow, and be early on the plenary session, and of course, the breakout session. So we will end this live stream in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye.